One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on the lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on applying the scheme. The true stock trademark is at the edge of your dreams. I'm talking one shot for the kill. The breeze come freeze up. Straight drop in the chill. I'm talking taking over pieces and shares. A bomb big sky high. Check the movement is here.
All right.
What's
hey
up?
everyone. This is our post CES 2024 show where Brian will let you know what he really thinks of CES and me as well, right? It was so crazy. It was hard for us to get really deep into it. And sometimes our live stream didn't match up with what we saw later, because we'll do the live stream, then we'll find out more information later, and then we don't get a chance to do a follow-up live stream to clarify things. But I think we have a lot of information now that is fairly accurate to the information being disclosed at CES, right? Because there was a lot of just information moving. So stop the FOMO. Welcome to our live stream. You're here with me and Brian's Tech Therapy, formerly
What's
known
up, guys?
as the Great Whisper Status. So
How's everybody?
hey, have you
How you
recovered?
doing, brother? You know
I'm
what? It's
doing
been
great.
so busy since I got home, and then I haven't hooked up this equipment since we got home, so everything needed to be restarted, and it's like I wasn't gone for 2 months. You're going for a few days, but I'm glad to be home. I was glad to spend time with you every day. We ate dinner together every day. We worked out together. We had a great week.
Oh, and let's talk about the crazy schedule, because I think this may have applied to many creators and YouTubers, not just us. But our schedule was, so we fly in on Sunday, and next year I'm flying in on Saturday. There's no way I'm flying on Sunday. It's just so last
Yeah,
minute.
we'll stay a day early.
So we fly in, right? Yeah, we're gonna get in Saturday, but so we flew in on Sunday. Brian, I originally was supposed to land at like 10:30 or 11, and then my flight Southwest, the plane dies. Like the stewardess is like, plane's not working. We're gonna move you to another gate. Get your new plane. So I come in at 12. Brian comes in now an hour earlier than me. He checks in, and guess what? Our first event is at 2:00 that afternoon at Samsung. The first look that you guys saw, right? Because Samsung reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we're going to open it up to you guys extra early so you can get your footage in and maybe release something the next day." I'm like,
yeah,
we're barely going to make it, right? So I don't have a check-in yet because my check-in's at 3. I got all this luggage. I have 2 check-in. I got a computer, the Ultra Studio. I have 2 cameras. I got my DJI. Brian's got all his gear, also a bunch of check-in bags. Brian's like, you know what? We'll have to do early check-ins. So luckily, right, Brian, you got your check-in done early. I put all my stuff into his room. Then we run out to Samsung. And then right after Samsung, it was what? LG? And then
so if you go back to the beginning, FOMO's closer than I am. So I assume he's going to get in before me. He assures me we're going to be good. I'm going to get in, bro. Don't worry. I get in first, and then I was trying to check into the buffet because the buffet had the buffet had like the computers in front of it. So she's like, "Sir, I cannot find your registration." I said, "Well, look, I
we're at
booked this like
Caesar's
6
Palace.
months ago." Caesar's Palace.
To give you context, Caesar's Palace, the Bacchanal Buffet is one of the most, like, I don't want to say famous, but it's a destination event. So you have all these computer terminals for people to check in. You're checking into a buffet like you're checking into the airport, right? So you're there trying to
so I'm sitting check-in. Yeah. So then I'm looking over at the bathroom thinking, okay, we're gonna have to pull some Superman crap. We're gonna have to get change there, bring our bags and check. And she's like, I can't find you. Sure, I'll hook you up, hook me up. And then finally she goes, I don't see you on the buffet. I'm like, buffet. So then I was able to check in and it worked out fine. But my day started at like 3 a.m. And then our night didn't end till like 3 a.m. Vegas time. So we really grinded for 24 hours. It was just a crazy schedule, which again, first up was Samsung.
And that night, we stayed up until 3 in the morning just editing our video. So I stayed up until almost 4 getting out my Samsung first look the next day. But every night after that, you and I stayed up until 3 to 4 in the morning to get up again at, well, you got up even earlier to work out. Like the next day, Brian calls me, you ready to work out? I'm like, I need another hour. I only had 2.5 hours. So Brian went to the gym and he was like, what the heck is this? It's like all these people that as they were arriving, right? Standing room only in the gym.
It was a ton of people.
it was just every day,
Yeah.
3 to 4 hours of
All
sleep.
the makeup
And as far
bags.
as the
AJ said all my makeup
590
bags.
meal, right? I think we only had 1 meal a day. So we kind of
Yeah.
pushed all of
Well,
our meal to a early dinner, right?
yeah. Well, I think our yeah. So our schedule, I think, was a little different than some other creators, and that's thanks to the manufacturers. And we had things booked. So what was different, you didn't see if you were on the floor of CES, chances are you didn't bump into us because we were booked. So we didn't get a chance to see the other creators much. We bumped into the guys once at LG. Then really never saw them again, which is, we're there to do a job and we're there to see things because I mean, we'll start off right now, FOMO, with like the truth of CES is when you go, if you don't have the behind the scenes hookup, the TVs really aren't on the floor. At
Right.
least some of the main TVs are in like VIP rooms, LG, Samsung,
Well,
Hisense
Hisense's 2024 lineup was in a VIP room, which is crazy.
room. So unfortunately, the TCL was the only one that actually had everything on the floor. So if we were there just without any of our hookups, there would be very little to show you. So there's that pressure. So FOMO and I had gig after gig after gig, which is more exhausting, but we'll look to do more of that next year because actually it's the only way to do it.
And this is why we
These
work out so much during the
It
year,
was
right?
exhausting, and we
So,
were in shape, and it was exhausting. So, that
oh,
means
yeah,
FOMO, we
yeah.
did not drink, no partying, no bad food. We actually were healthy and still got sick. I mean, it was brutal.
Oh, can I tell you guys, I lost 4 pounds of muscle between taking off for Tokyo and then 3 weeks later. So before I left, I had my weight in on the in-body machine. So I was at 10.5% body fat and like 100, like, I don't know, like 66 something pounds of muscle. When I got back, my muscle, my fat content went up by 3%, mostly because my muscle composition dropped by 4 pounds. So I
Yeah,
dropped weight
you
like
lost mass.
128 because I don't hold muscle very well. So if I'm not working out and eating a lot of protein, eating protein alone isn't enough. So, but let's jump into what you guys really want to know. And this is a great question because this is a distinction between what Samsung Display can do and what Samsung Electronics, which is the Samsung S95D or the Sony next generation or whoever is using Samsung Display.
Yeah,
So we'll start with Samsung Display. Samsung Display can push their panel
amazing.
safely 3,000 is 3%. And Chirag is like, this is good as far as, longevity, all that stuff. Now, whether the TV maker, in this case, Samsung Electronics S95D, can it actually reach 3,000 nits and 3%? And so I like to address this one, right? The follow-up. They only said 20% more brightness. So this is what you guys have to think about. They can the software hold back so that next year they have some headroom in case Samsung Display doesn't do anything that increases the brightness. They have that headroom to add that extra brightness to 3000 nits,
Yeah,
assuming they're using the third gen panel. Now, we don't know this, right? I don't know if they're using third gen or not, but I'm going to assume they are using third gen, mostly because Chirag has said, look, this has been available for them to use for 2024. Whether they use it, he cannot say because that's up to the TV makers,
it's up to
Samsung
them. Yeah, their
Electronics,
their
Sony.
inventory.
Right. Like Sony, we already have this feeling that Sony may not even have a third gen panel for this year, an A95M. I mean, rumor is they will roll over the A95L, but who knows? They've been very secretive, right, Brian? Everything is rumor that they're not going to have anything
More and
better
more
than
so
what they
than
had.
yeah, more so than last year. But I think more importantly, FOMO, what was great about Shrog and Samsung Display, because I know a lot of you guys were worried about this, the achieving 3000 nits was actually due to their efficiency. So they're not actually pushing
Yes.
anything harder. They were actually able to achieve
Mhm.
that. And I know in your video you showed some of that. To do that with color and brightness at the same
Yeah.
time was pretty amazing. So Chirag and Samsung Displays demo was some of the best that we saw. I'm telling you, FOMO, those QD OLEDs look like micro LEDs, but not
And I have to,
not in the
what?
Samsung booth.
Speak of
They look like
Chirag.
good,
Oh, just speak of
good.
Chirag. Thank you, Chirag and Samsung Display, for giving us that. It's almost an
Okay.
exclusive look. Like we were there, it was just Brian and I, and we're like, yes, because I don't have to run around. Because if you have too many people in the same showing, then you have a lot of questions. You have a lot of things that
Yeah.
kind of
And you
take us
can't
off the
film.
rails,
You can't film
and you
anything.
can't film, right? There are people walking in the way, but this way, it was just Brian and I filming, and it was great. So thank you, Samsung Display, for giving us a chance to have a more open dialogue and also kind of walk around with their camera. But then also to disliked channel's point, he already achieved this the service menu with the anti-peak mod. And maybe this is what Samsung did with the second gen. All they did was unleash that mod. So you see what I'm
Yeah,
saying is
probably.
it wouldn't surprise me if this is a second gen panel on the S95D just unleashed. And then they're holding back. And then next year, boom, right? 3000 nits.
Yeah.
So again, speculation on my part. Once we get the TV though, even if it's third gen, you might have to go into the service menu again, assuming they allow it this year, with an Anapeak mod. So we'll find out. But yeah, it's really, really exciting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so we if we backtrack our biggest first we start off at Samsung, which has the most impressive amount of things. They really had like last year, they had the micro LEDs. Um they had the OLEDs were more prominent than last year. Last year they only had two OLEDs, S90 and S95. This year they had the 42, 48, 55, the 83. The QLEDs at 4K definitely took a step back. They were kind of not as flashy. 8K was more prominent this year. Tell them a little bit about FOMO. They're definitely stepping up 8K.
About Samsung?
Yeah, they're definitely doubling down on
Yes.
8K.
So they have definitely added a layer of processing. So we were in Samsung's innovation room, and this was one where they had the 8K specialist and an 8K cameraman. He's an IMAX cameraman, IMAX
Yeah, that was the
videographer,
next day. Yeah.
cinematographer, right? And he wanted to explain like why 8K is important. And then you got the technical team. He was the AI specialist to help processing the AI. And he's out here in Irvine, and he was like Dr. Such and such, and he was explaining what they had to do. So it's very interesting when they're doing, and this is why it's not on the 4K, right? It's only on the 8K because it's a triple module that's concurrently processing. One module is identifying the object. So they have this huge library of objects. So whether it's text, books, people, trees, it doesn't matter. If
AI.
that object right matches their library, they will clear it up using the preconditioned library, and it continues to grow. So
Yep.
the birth example is text. If text is slightly unclear, AI knows, oh, that's text, let's clear it up. And the best example of that was we were watching Umbrella Academy. I think it was like the last episode of last season, sitting on a bunch of books, 1080p. So the 1080p version, the text was definitely substandard. And it wasn't meant to be seen, by the way. I could tell
Yeah, it
that
wasn't. Yeah,
depth
creator's
of field,
intent.
right? Creator's intent was you're focused on the character, which is in focus, and then around more books and everything. And the titles aren't important. It's just, they're books. But then when they cleaned it up with AI, I was like, is it creator's intent for me to read everything on the text? He started laughing. He goes, well, it happened, right?
Well, FOMO was
And then
joking that like one of the set designers, I know in Jurassic Park, Stan Winston's team actually put their signatures on the T-Rex. It'd be like Bob was here. Like, oh crap.
right, exactly. Exactly.
Well,
That's how good it was.
So what I think is really cool is at the end of last year, everything was OLED. Done deal. Everything's OLED.
Yes.
Mini LEDs are dying. What we saw this year,
and to be fair, I was on that bandwagon. I was convinced that everyone would walk away. Now, other than Hisense TCL, I know their position, but Samsung, Sony, LG's walked away. So I don't think they really revisited it this year, but Samsung and Sony felt like OLED is the future for them.
Yeah, so Sony, we'll talk about them in a moment, are clearly back in the 4,000 nit. They're trailblazing that. But useful 4,000 nits, not the 10,000 nits you're going to see from Hisense, which is still amazing. But it's really going to be about LEDs in the future because we're going to that size, FOMO. We're going to that 100, 115, 110. And it's amazing that now that is great for Samsung because they know the only way to make money, FOMO, is to go back into premium. And you can't do that at 4K. So it's either HD QD OLED premium or they have to go 8K. A reason to sell that, and this is called super resolution essentially. So it's not just upscaling; they're going to add processing to it. Not everyone's going to like it, but we have some examples of it. And seeing it on 1080p was pretty jarring, FOMO. Also, the motion enhancement was pretty cool. I can't see
Definitely
that
for
being
sports.
for sports, absolutely. I can't see
Yeah,
that being
and that
for
was that. Yeah,
enthusiasts,
yeah.
but it kind of shows you. And what's funny, we talked about this before we went to CES, was that it can get pretty boring if it's just refinement this year. We thought it'd be a lot of refinement from Sony.
Mhm,
Not at
mhm.
all. Everyone's looking to do something different. They're all kind of headed in mini LED bright. The stuff that we put to bed a year and a half ago, everyone wants
It's
to get
back.
bright again. So now
Like
all your
zombie.
OLEDs are trash. So, and
And
2000 nits is not enough, by the way.
speaking of brightness, nits, and OLED, pushing polygons, I know many of you have this question. Stop the FOMO whisper status. Can you guys recommend a tool to test brightness? I got the QD Alienware monitor. So you either have to have one of those meters that calibrators use, or have a dedicated light meter that is
Yeah.
for something like this, which is, I have the Minolta. But all this stuff, it could be anywhere from $300 to $1,000. But definitely you're looking at a calibrator's toolkit, and it's probably not worth it. I'll tell you this, pushing polygons, if it's a QD OLED monitor, it's not going to exceed 1,000 nits. Chirag already told us that they limit their QD OLED monitors to 1,000.
Yeah.
So, and depending what Alienware does, so the raw panel only goes up to 1,000. Alienware may reduce that further, but it's unlikely they'll push it beyond 1,000. So somewhere between 600 and 1,000 nits is what you'll get on your peak brightness. But yeah, and it's panel variance as well. So you'll have to get something for that for
Well,
sure.
FOMO, how funny is it though that so we went into the Samsung sneak peek, and we were talking
Yes.
to the guy about when he said he goes, well, look, it's like he was almost a little behind us. He goes, well, look, guys, everything's only really mastered to 1,000. You're like, well, actually, we're looking for 4,000. And he goes, well, how much is really going to be like that? And you're actually saying to yourself, well, considering Sony's releasing a brand new 4,000 nit reference monitor that 80% of the industry is going to use, you're going to see 4,000 nit content. It's not going to be Sony Pictures making a few movies. That's what I thought. They were making movies. No, they're going to use a
Yeah.
reference monitor, and the creators want it. So now we're actually going to see 4,000 nits, not because the TVs are capable of it, because the movies
Mhm.
will be in it. Not one title, not two, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So that's
And
pretty
just
amazing.
to revisit that conversation, where's this 4,000 nit coming from? People are saying Sony is pushing this agenda. So Sony is very clear. They're saying, we wanted to let you know it was Hollywood studios that called them and says, look,
Yeah, it
your
wasn't
1,000
them.
nit monitor, not good enough. We want to start grading and giving you 4,000 nit content. We don't like doing it in software because too many passes. It's time consuming. The budget doesn't allow us to go back and then give you a 4,000 nit layer. We want to do it in one go. And the only way to do that within budget is to have a 4,000 nit monitor. So although it's a one-time purchase of whatever, several hundred thousand for a whole bunch of them,
Yeah.
after that, everything produced afterwards will be one pass, or definitely less passes. That keeps us within budget, because previously on the 1,000 nit reference monitor they're using now, it takes too many passes to then start grading at a higher nits. They don't have the budget, and they're like, you know what? Just cut it down. Let's just go move on to the next movie.
Well, FOMO, you used the perfect example during the Samsung sound demo. Was it the new Zack Snyder film where you talked about the height channels not being used?
Yeah, the
Right?
Rebel Moon.
Rebel Moon.
What a
So
disappointment.
if we talk about that as we move to streaming, FOMO, we talked about, HDR was always tacked on, 3D was tacked on. I didn't realize it wasn't just a budgetary concern, but this passing, think about that as a creator, as a grader. You're like, oh my God, am I doing this again? And then when you say to yourself, half the TVs can't do it, they just wipe their hands of it. So when I found out from Sony, and FOMO already knew this, it was the cause and effect. They weren't just pushing it, it's wanted. And there's a Dolby monitor that's not being made either that everyone, what's the name of the Dolby monitor, FOMO, that everybody was using?
Pulsar. The Pulsar is no
Pulsar
longer available.
isn't being made anymore. So what they're finding is studios want new monitors. That's how Sony's making their money versus Samsung and phones. Think about that for a second. So they're going to make money off
Mhm.
that. They order dozens of them. Now the creators who are now younger, FOMO, coming up, they're going to utilize HDR. Now, I'm only
And
kidding. If OLEDs, you have your OLEDs, they're garbage. What I'm saying is we've wanted 4,000 nits since 2015.
well,
Now we're
because
finally
Dolby
finding it.
Vision promised 10,000 nits, right? It's like,
Yes, so
you can
we've
do
been chasing
10,000,
that.
10,000, right? Yeah.
So it's actually working into the wheelhouse of TCL, Hisense, Sharp XLED. The only one left out in the cold yet again is going to be LG, because the QNED isn't really looking to be that. Though I would say, FOMO, the QNED was actually pretty impressive considering that was the lowest model. You actually were
Yeah,
pretty impressed with that.
I was. It was edge lit, and now of
Oh,
course
Christian.
it's in a vacuum. But now, Christian, I want to address this comment because it gives context on what Samsung is working on, because I don't think we just glossed over what Brian just said, where they have this new stereo system or stereo. They have this new immersive spatial audio format called IAMF. And you guys saw my earlier video complaining that IAMF is an awkward abbreviation, which means
When he
nothing.
said that to their face, yeah, this guy does not hold back. They're like, so what do you think? He goes, well, I'd change the name if I were you.
and so, and that was another suggestion I had for him while he was there was, I go, okay, honestly, the problem with spatial audio is, and we use Rebel Moon, I go, when the creator doesn't do their job, I understand the budget. I'm not going to blame the creator, but the studio. When the studio doesn't give the sound mixer enough money to spend time doing overhead, right? So the Atmos is, I mean, it's bad. There is no overhead on Rebel Moon. It's raining, and there's no rain coming down.
So pause. I want you guys to know that my boy, not only can he be very technical, but that guy you see doing jumps and spins, that's really him too. So we're in front of all the Korean team looking at the spatial audio with the one American guy's like, so what do you think? FOMO goes, so Rebel Moon. He looks up, he goes, the rain? No rain. The way he did it was as if he was really looking for it. And they all looked at him like, yeah, I know. But he has this perfect balance of technical and just calling it like it is. He's like, no rain in here.
And that, well, that was exactly why I was complaining.
Awesome.
I go, look, I don't care how good your AI is.
If it's not there.
Can you fill in the blank? Yeah, and that's when it says, oh, I'm glad you asked. Because I said, at this point, forget creator's intent. The creator failed. In this case, the sound mixer failed me, not through any fault of his own, budget constraints being what it is. And he says, yes, the future of AI sound is upmixing and filling in that content, very similar to Auro 3D. If you guys know Auro 3D upmixing. Yep. And I said, okay, if you guys can do that effectively, I'm on board. Because the truth is, I don't blame sound mixers for just not having enough Atmos effects, but it's very inadequate, like Aquaman. Terrible, right? Same thing, right? There's nothing up there, right? So I love that you're mentioning, how come Samsung isn't talking about mini LED? And so this takes us to another conversation we had. And this time Florian was doing the presentation. And Florian was very clear, right? He put together this checklist where he said, image quality, we're already there. For us to refine image quality any further, you're not going to notice it. Brightness, and this is where we were arguing, brightness, we're already there, right? We're at, whatever, almost 2000 nits. You don't need any more. And then, of course, I raised my hand. Florian, you heard about Sony's 4000 nit? He's all like,
again, right? So check it out. I got to stop you. So he just says, so we're not even going to get into the matte finish yet, because this is where your boys are talking.
Right. He's setting up the matte finish, right?
So he's setting up the matte finish thing. And he goes, well, and this is what we've said to you guys for the last 3 years. Well, guys, there isn't much over 1,000 nits. So he goes, and there's not much over 1,000 nits. And FOMO raises his hand. He goes, yeah, but Sony just recently went 4,000. And then FOMO looks around the whole room like, you guys saw that, right? They're like, oh. Samsung, who has always pushed brightness, is trying to tell me we're good at 1,000.
Well, that's why I put out the video, is to prep CES, prep the entire just reviewers. Like, if they already didn't know, my video made sure everyone knew. And Florian guys, well, let's move on. We're all, we're there.
Ready
all
next.
this stuff, right?
And that's
like you're destroying his narrative. Right?
And that's why people, I think, really jump towards Auro 3D, because it was Matrix and it would at least it would make those speakers do something. But for Christian, I understand what you're saying. So who glosses over what? That really comes into where you guys rely on us. So we haven't covered it yet. My Samsung QLED videos are not out yet. A lot of I am not watching what other people are doing. FOMO and I really don't have time to see what the other creators are doing. We really watch each other's stuff right now because we collaborate. I know I have to cover 8K yet, and I still have to color their QLED lineup. That's coming up. we really are doing things in order from how we saw that a lot of the time. I put up
Mhm.
Panasonic because I snuck in and I wanted to deliver that to you guys because FOMO and I always hear. He even has a T-shirt made. Where's Panasonic? I also got to look at some Sharp TVs that I snuck in and saw. But the QLED lineup, they didn't really. This is where it's, I think, tough. If you're looking at a 4K QLED FOMO, that processor from Samsung, this beefy
Feels the
11,
same.
it's only on the 8K TV,
Yeah.
not on the
Not in the 4K.
S95C. So they're going only at
Mhm.
8K for this. So they're going to have a clear separation. Now the QN95 B and C had the different processor FOMO, but I think they were still very similar. This is light years ahead of
The
the rest
8K,
of the
yeah,
line,
the 8K
the
neural
8K one.
processor. That's what I
So
think
it's
so
gonna
too.
and it's gonna. So I see, Terry's in the chat who has a Z9K. It's almost gonna be like now, if you want the best QLED, finally FOMO, you're gonna have to go with the 8K model. But I think the super resolution that they're gonna push, which you can disable, is gonna make it worth your while.
And I definitely think at the Value Electronics spring comparison,
Yeah,
we need to have the 8K 900D to
absolutely.
compare with the G4, the A95, well, to see if that 8K super resolution AI, and we will choose content at slightly lower either bit rate or
Just
resolution to see if
1080p.
they
Yeah.
add anything more, right? And I think this segues great
What's up,
and
buddy?
perfectly into Buddy Love's super chat. Thanks, Buddy Love, for that. People need to understand that display tech is
Waterworld.
catching
You mean
up
you mean you
to
mean
what Hollywood
Abyss?
studios want. It's
He said a
been
what?
that way ever since Cameron created Waterworld,
He didn't
Avatar,
make
Abyss, right?
Waterworld, bro. Waterworld's the biggest flop in history. He made
No, no, but
Abyss.
this he made Abyss, right?
Abyss. He
But
said
here's the
Waterworld.
thing.
James Cameron will kill you, buddy.
Here's the thing. Florian, that was exactly his theme.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah,
they went to that
yeah.
anti-glare matte screen because he was saying, look, these are incremental
I hate
upgrades.
it,
No
buddy.
one's going to notice that. And he goes, but we wanted to give you an experience that will change your life for good or for bad, but it will change
For
it
that.
will improve image quality at a very noticeable level. And so this is where we're going to have that discussion, which
Yeah.
is, and I'll take devil's advocate because I know where he's going. If the frame outsells every other model by a certain degree, right, which means it's very popular, and you have to imagine how I'm seeing them marketing this. You're at a Best Buy. It's on their display, right? Right, Brian? It's right up there next to the S95 or S90D, next
Yeah.
to the QN 900D, right? All their flagship, but it's the only one with that. Some people are saying technically it's not matte, but satin. Okay. But definitely more matte than the other ones, right? Closer to the frame. But here's the thing when you walk and see real scenes, and they're going to have like dark scenes coming through, immediately the salesperson who's trained by Samsung is going to say, notice the S95D. You notice the reflections, and then
Yep.
the
Oh yeah.
wife, the spouse, who doesn't care about OLED or QLED, yeah, that's great. There's no reflection. And she's going to say, honey, that's the one I want. That's what they're banking on because
Yeah.
he already knows the enthusiast. They're going to get a Sony. Okay, the A90, the S95D cannot compete with the enthusiast who's looking at the G4, the Sony, because of color accuracy, 3D LUT. I mean, Sony and LG has dominated the enthusiast market for their very unique enthusiast specific features. Samsung S95D cannot compete with them, Brian, right? If you and I are shopping, you're thinking A80, the A80 or the S or the A95 or the G4. Samsung S90C might be in the conversation, but at that price or the One Connect, it's out. Just the One Connect alone, out for you. But
Yeah.
then for the premium buyer, like, oh, you know what? No one else has this. This allows them to separate at that flagship, and I think it will
Well, they're
work.
gonna separate, all right.
Right,
So there's
as you can see, go
So
ahead.
there's that. So FOMO and I have a tech therapy video coming up next week where we're gonna get heated about this. So we're gonna save it for that. But I'll tell you this: there's a great saying for sports where it says, "If you listen to the fans as a coach, you'll be sitting with them." So FOMO's point really is, if your job is to sell TVs, which TCL and Hisense are killing it, especially TCL. Samsung is not interested in what I say and pleasing you and I. The enthusiast is the last one to get taken care of because we don't really buy. We kind of hang out, we kick the can, we check it out. It's the family that walks in that says, "I can't see my reflection in that one. I want it," and they leave with it. That's who. My point of it was very interesting to put that on your flagship while the G4 is going for 3,000 nits. To me, as if you're an enthusiast, the G4 is going to wipe the floor with it. Now it puts the S90D in a situation to not fight the 880L. It now has to fight the G4. The problem is the S90, that little percentage in picture quality, FOMO, is not going to beat the G4.
No, I don't think so.
So
Not
it
with
could
a
have beat
new updated
it could have beat the
processor.
G3. So it's interesting. And now that there's an 83-inch G4, there's
Yeah.
nothing to fight it.
And
So
it's closer to 6,000 though. So to be fair, it's not like you guys could flip over to a
yeah,
$6,000
but you
83-inch
see how
OLED. I
these
mean, that's a whole
differences
other
in
market.
you see how the but you see how these differences. Now, when I put up my S95 short, the video barely published and people are like, yuck, right off the
They were
beginning.
yelling at you, like, Brian, how could you do this?
It's like I just came out from under the hood with my tools. And so
It's like,
so quickly, do you want to do the first experience when we first saw them, Matt, in the demo? You want that? That's actually pretty funny.
in the innovation room?
Yeah. You guys want to
Okay.
cover that, or you
All
want to
right.
ask them what they want to cover?
Okay, so before we jump into that, I want to address Jason Sims' comment, only because he may have missed the beginning. It's going to be a hard sell to get movie studios to get rid of that 1,000-nit studio monitor. So Jason, it was the other way around. The studio wanted to get rid of the 1,000-nit monitor. So without naming names, Sony was very clear. The studios had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
They only have the 1,000-nit monitor. So it's not
Make
so
me
much they
one.
don't want to get rid of it.
Make me
Right.
one.
They're like, we want to get rid of it. Do you have anything brighter? And Sony
Yeah.
says it is out. They are shipping right now to the largest studios that made that demand. We're talking about blockbuster studios, blue chip studios, right? The blue bloods out there.
Yep.
And they're the ones that call Sony and go, look, there's nothing out there. The Pulsars are
Yeah.
falling apart, no longer for sale, whatever. And we have to rent it. We can't even own it, right? And so Sony is filling this demand, not the other way around. They didn't build a solution looking for a problem. They're addressing a problem that the studios reached out to them. So that was what surprised me. So yeah. Okay, so Brian.
But so let's stay with
go for
that
it.
point for 1 second, FOMO. So that goes with Sony's. It looks like they're changing direction. They're not. The A95L is the winner. It's already an amazing TV. It's done. The rest of the TVs are going to have that same operating system going forward, so they don't have to worry about that. They can release that in December whenever they want. Now it makes more sense, FOMO, to create an AK-Z9M. It makes more sense to take the X95, which peaked at about 2,500 nits, that the next version of the X95 will be 4,000 nits, because they have a reason. They have the reference
Actually,
monitor.
you know what? You just nailed it. Combining what you said with Christian. Look at Christian, right? This is the laziest upgrade. So Christian, if they were to just stick with a second gen panel, and just, let's say they stick with a second gen panel, then they unleash the Ana peak that's in the service menu to its 20% maximum, which is still safe. They were just holding back. They add the matte screen. This is the Band-Aid lazy upgrade for 2024.
So, yeah,
2025, it's that third gen panel. And
So-
again, my speculation, but it makes sense to me.
Well, and FOMO said this too. FOMO said, well, perhaps with the lack of polarizer and the issues that the S95B and C both had in direct sunlight, the problem that the QD OLED was not because it had reflection problems. It had a graying of the screen. So what this matte finish does is it eats the reflection, but it raises the color. It raises the blacks.
So it grays the screen a little bit more.
So it grays it all the way. And look, I'm telling you right now, its reflection handling is the best I've ever seen.
Amazing.
But that's not my biggest problem. So,
But you and I, what do? We have light controlled room. And what did you say? Oh, I'm fine with a gloss reflection. You are so used to the gloss, you're okay with it. But for a family who's looking at 77-inch, they got $3 or $4 grand to spend. They're like, this anti-reflection is pretty great. And that's why Jay says it'll sell like hotcakes.
Absolutely.
But we don't know. I mean, this is all on paper. And by the way, if it doesn't sell like hotcakes, it's gone next year. If it does sell like hotcakes, S95E, I guess next year would be E, fans will have a problem because they're going to stick with it. Don't you think, Brian? I mean, if it sells like hotcakes, like, yes, we got the equation.
Well,
and
but
so now we have to wait for Sony.
But if you're sitting around a round table talking about money and somebody goes, look, the frame is killing it, the boss is going to go, tell me more. They're not going to listen to the passionate filmmaker who's like, I need the
No.
They're going to go with the money. So
Okay.
what's it?
Wait. Let's talk about the passionate filmmaker, like the guy that we saw, very nice gentleman, the IMAX guy. He's wearing Birkenstocks and a straw hat. Then you got the then you got the polished
No
accountant
money.
with the Armani shoes, the slick tie. He's like, I'm gonna make you money, Samsung. So you got the filmmaker with his Birkenstocks yelling from the height of his lungs, no! And then you got $1 billion, my friend. You're gonna go with $1 billion every
Yeah.
single time, and that's the problem.
So yeah, but so I mean, back to the demo. And I'm going to go in two places. One, when we saw Chirag's Samsung displays, they compared themselves to WRGB OLEDs, and this awesome comparison with a candle, which is in your video, FOMO. And it showed how the QD OLED was just as bright as the WRGB OLED, but it retained the color. It was still like an orangey, was real. And then they compared to last year's QD OLED. That's where
Yeah.
you look at it and say, wow, take that same comparison and then go into our Samsung, which is the manufacturer, not the creator of, so not Samsung Display, but Samsung Electronics.
Right.
So what they did with the S95C is not the raw panel that Chirag showed. Just so I give you that context. So I wasn't watching a QD OLED from Chirag. I was watching the S95D go against last year's WRGB. They were side by side. When it was off, that thing is so matte, it looks like it was made of fabric. It was blacker than the dark. That's what I was saying. It was blacker than the dark. When the image came on screen, it was obvious that the WRGB OLED was cleaner, brighter, and had more color.
With the distraction of the reflections. And so that's always what they say, look, you're putting out white papers, people get their eyesight starts to fail, whatever it is. So because you're constantly focusing and defocusing out of the reflection. I get it, right? Now, Lisa reminds everyone there is 359 in chat. Be sure to hit the like button if you like our content.
Yeah, thanks,
We're here all the time. So thank you everyone for coming by. Now, SD brings up a point that it just hit me what just happened.
What's up,
Companies
SD?
run out of innovation, so that's why they chase nits. So SD, actually, I think it's even worse than that. So this is why I'm creating the narrative in my mind now. Samsung Electronics, the one in charge of the S95D, S95C, before Samsung Display said to them, we got 3,000 nits, they're like, okay, what can we do for 2024 with the remaining inventory? And then, let's do a matte screen, right? It's the same panel, the second gen panel. They still got to get rid of it. And then Samsung Display goes, guess what, guys? We got 3,000 nits. They're like, that's for 2025. Like, stop innovating so quickly. So on Samsung Display, they're going full speed ahead. Whereas Samsung Electronics, as a company whose sole job is retail business, they need to amortize all that research in the S95B and the S95C. And before they jump into yet another panel, they want to reduce the cost by covering 2 generations in one panel, if it's available. Because S95D is not a big seller. It's expensive, right? So they're like, look, we want to recoup some of this cost. Give us some margin on the S95D. So if they use the second gen panel for 2024, that margin is huge because they already bought it in 2023. Now in 2024, they can use it. They will charge the same. The margin will be this big. And guess what? By Black Friday, by Prime Day, prices will drop. They will still make huge money on margins. And then in 2025, they will go, guess what? We have 3,000 nits. And then we got all excited again. But I think 2024 is
this
the year
time
for
next
them
year
to get margins, right? Because I have to say the matte screen, it's not expensive. It's a film. Hey, let's create a marketing thing for it. Let's create a whole business case for it. And it may work. If it sells like hotcakes, that gamble paid off. And so now, as far as innovations, SD, what's left? Other than, 4,000 nit content, whatever. Let's remove that. Sony's got some image processing chops. What's left, Brian? Because most people, when they see the S90C, they're thrilled. Like, oh my gosh, best TV I've
Yeah.
ever seen. Once they say that, what do you have left?
Well, I think that, but that goes into anything. That goes into cars. It's going to go back into efficiency. We can only go so far. That's why I think you get the distraction of transparent OLEDs or the transparent micro LEDs. And one of my buddies in marketing says that's a 10-minute experience. What
Yeah.
is it going to be used for? Now, I love the way the LG transparent OLED was presented to us because it was artistic. But as far as me wanting that in my house, no.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. As far as the Sharp new quantum dot prototype, I saw their TVs. I didn't see the
Let me address that. So the minute I saw Caleb put that out, so Caleb put out a video, the quantum dot prototype. If you guys don't know what it is, a quick shortcut. So QD OLED is the OLED blue is driving the energy into quantum dot color converting layer, and then the OLED blue is the blue layer. So you have red, green, and blue. Red and green is a quantum dot, and then the blue is OLED. Now, in this new quantum dot prototype, it's called quantum dot electroluminescent. There is no backlight like the blue OLED, right? Each quantum dot, red, blue, and green, is self-emissive. So instead of let's say on your smartphone, the Samsung smartphone, it's a RGB direct view OLED self-emissive. Each of those RGBs is an OLED pixel. They replace each of those pixels with a quantum dot pixel. This is never done before. This is definitely a prototype. So quantum dot is more efficient. It's not organic, so it should be more stable, but really it isn't. It's also unstable. But once they have the stability locked down, it shouldn't decompose with heat over time. Organic materials, like all OLEDs, will get dimmer over time due to that just finite. The more you use it, the more it will start to decompose. The quantum dot is like micro LED in the sense that it's not organic. It's not going to decompose. Now, how bright does it get? What is its true lifetime? All of that remains to be seen. But this is the end game for the quantum dot technology itself. The end goal of quantum dot nanosys has always been to create a self-emissive quantum dot. And this is that next generation. So Sharp, I immediately reached out to Nanosys, by the way. I said, hey, I need to talk to Sharp. So here's the deal. Sharp will likely show off a better baked version at Display Week in May or so. So I'll be there. But between now and then, they are in what we call secretive mode. They don't want to reveal too much. They're not used to press, which shocking, right? But they're like, oh, wait, we're getting a lot of attention. And so they went back into hiding. So basically, they almost regret showing it off at CES because they're getting so much attention. So we're not going to really know more until the spring. But just to let you guys know, I am very surprised that this prototype is there. And even Nanosys is like, whoa, wow, they did a good job getting it out there. Because I know the blue was not yet ready. So I will ask Sharp, generally speaking, what is the lifetime right now? Because the initial prototypes from last year had a much shorter lifetime. But yes, I did not see it because it was like a last minute reveal for maybe 8 hours, and then they disappeared, and then they went back into hiding.
So how I
we'll
saw
get more.
Sharp, so how I saw Sharp was I was looking for FOMO to start our SK shoot. I went down the wrong hallway and I saw the American president from Sharp on the phone. And I met him at Value Electronics. We introduced myself. He gave
Ah,
me a big hug. He took me in the back room. And that's the only reason why I was able to shoot the Sharp OLED and some of his products. But they were in a completely separate room. And when I went to the Sharp booth FOMO, there was nothing there other than a coffee maker and some other stuff. So that's kind of the truth behind CES. So I was very disappointed in LG's offering this year. There was very little in regards to TVs. Samsung only had 8K TVs in their entire booth. A lot of monitors, FOMO. At least
mhm.
last year, I think they had the S90 maybe in that booth, but very little. What's up, Jen?
And hey, Jennifer Gala, always welcome. And this is something
Jennifer's
that
on behind me, actually.
we didn't address, nor did we see, is the Apple Vision Pro. I don't even know if they were at
Apple
CES,
wasn't even
but
there.
for sure, I want to be a day one pre-order. So I already spoke to my contacts at Apple to get there. But let's just cover Apple Vision Pro real quick. As a content consumer, not as a productivity monitor, this is purely for consuming immersive content. movies and the like, not even gaming, right? I agree with Jennifer, her observations. I haven't worn the Apple Vision Pro personally, so I don't know how heavy it is, but I did check out the Quest 3 and it's amazingly light. It's very similar. It's like a poor man's Apple Vision Pro to a certain degree. But yeah, I was pretty shocked at how well executed it was. And I can't wait to kind of see a comparison between the two based on content. Now, what concerns me is what Jennifer was saying is the Apple Vision Pro, the complaint is, can you wear it for long? So we're going to have to see how long you can wear it. And I love that they're going to have to upgrade to a better strap, all of them. Like the more, I mean, this is so comfort is king. No matter how good it is, if it hurts or gives you a headache just wearing it for 40 minutes, you're going to let it go. So the Apple Vision Pro is definitely a prototype, work in progress. When it releases this spring, I don't suggest anyone get it so early. Let us use it, spend our money, have fun with it, and then the next generation should be better because Apple's good at revisiting and revising it to make it both cheaper and more user-friendly by the end. But yeah, Apple Vision Pro, I'm pretty excited about that as well. And hey, thank you for the super sticker, Andy. Always
Hell of a
appreciate it.
beard, Andy. Damn.
I know. So now, are you talking about the S90D or S90C? It feels like the S90D is the same as the S90C in terms of build quality. It's the same TV both years. Now, the motion, I think I've always thought the motion on the Samsung has been okay. It's not, it doesn't
just
have
different.
the most settings, but
different.
I think it's fine. But if you're super sensitive to soap opera, you might have to go with the Sony or the LG. But overall, I think its motion is fine. There is a setting for you or for most people. All right. Now okay, let's talk about Hisense and TCL. Okay, let's say we hit Samsung. And no, actually, I'll leave Hisense and TCL until later because LG is the shortest one. Other than the transparent OLED, which we know first is not coming to market this year. And if it does, it's super expensive for a tiny 55-inch. It really is for business spaces and hotels. Or if you're super rich, you're showing off fish, like a fish tank. But speaking of fish tank, we were at the Mirage, that giant fish tank.
So
Brian and I walked by
we
the
saw
fish
a
tank.
real fish tank. And
And the first thing I thought was the blacks are not black enough.
It's the contrast is terrible on that fish
The
tank.
contrast is terrible on the fish tank. It needs to be an OLED fish tank. And then Brian is saying the resolution is too low.
Yeah, the colors are not. So here we are walking by a real fish
The colors
tank,
don't pop.
and you can hear the desk is looking at us. I'm like, that doesn't even look real. You're like, well, it's real though. Those are real fish. Like they weren't vibrant enough for us.
No, they weren't.
LG, special shout out to David for getting us the hookup because they weren't going to do an event this year. So we did get an event. Thank God we did because they didn't have anything in the actual LG other than the transparent design, which they had was really cool this year. There was, put it this way, FOMO, when I was talking to you about going through LG, I was already in the booth and didn't realize it. I actually came out the back of it to the front of it. I'm sorry. So the thing you see in everybody's videos, which is the LG transparent OLEDs, that's all they really showed other than
that was what got the most oohs and ahs. I mean, that's the one where Brandon, you and me were like, do it again, right?
Yeah, so but if you
go up and down,
if you went into the booth as media and tried to see a C series, you weren't going to find it. You weren't going to see the G series. So David put on this thing for us, which was fantastic. It was great to see it. We saw a new M series, the M4, which is the wireless TV. The difference between this year, though, is they have a 65-inch. It is going to be MLA, though the acronym is not MLA anymore. I'm not going to change it until I have an official term.
And wireless eARC, so you don't have to connect a wire from your Zero Connect box to the soundbar. The soundbar will.
That was kind of funny to hook. Like it's wireless, but he put a cable.
Wireless, lossless, but no cable. We're like, oh,
so they have sense. So right off the bat, we first walk in. It was in where was it? In Bellagio? Where was it? Which one was it in?
It was in the Mandalay Bay. LG. Bay. So the LG special room with the food is in the Mandalay Bay, where they showed off the G4 and gave us some of the basic specs. But he did not say 3,000 nits, by the way. And so this is something that I want to emphasize.
Yeah,
LG displays, just like Samsung display, 3,000 nits, but LG Electronics, he was very clear, very cagey. He's like, you know, you guys are gonna have to measure it. It's brighter, right? But we're not gonna commit to any brightness. You guys measure and you tell us. And that's fair
Yeah.
enough because sometimes they get burned for promising and it turns out to be in vivid mode, whatever. So you didn't want to go into, oh, it's gonna be in vivid mode on a 2% window.
Yeah, but
You
FOMO
just
does
said
it.
it's brighter.
And the best thing they rectified over last year, if you remember last year, guys, the G3 was the only one with MLA. The M series from last year didn't have MLA. It was basically a G2. And the Z series maybe didn't have it. This year, the M4, if you want to go wireless, is 65 inches, lossless audio, and has MLA. The
Mhm.
G4 is all MLA, no improved processor. This is the best
Yeah,
part and
that's
the
the
worst.
biggie.
Yeah,
That's
so
the
this is the
biggie.
best part and the worst part is their processor is the 11 Alpha 11 this year. Definitely look into XR Clear from Sony, and they're proud of it. It changes everything from last year. The whole expression enhancer, all those things that we liked last year, they redid in 1 year. It only lasted 1 year.
Mhm.
The real sad
And
part,
their AI image processor now works on streaming content,
which
whereas
yeah,
before it didn't, which it didn't make
every
sense. But now,
everything is
again,
copywritten.
copying Sony. Yeah.
So G4, I thought it was very impressive. I would say the demo material was a lot of the Prime movies and their quick stuff. Very excited because the G3 was a great success FOMO last year. Where I was very disappointed is the C series was basically left alone. Not only does it not have MLA of any kind, it doesn't have the processor FOMO. So it's
No,
actually, if
not
it at least
yeah.
had the processor, it could get the A80L treatment. Which
Mhm.
is why the A80L was the choice last year over the C series, is it had XR Clear. Now you're
Yeah.
keeping it with the old processor, no MLA to differentiate the G3 FOMO. I'm sorry, the G4, but the C4 becomes a very hard recommendation now, don't you think? I mean, that was kind of the bad news that I got from them.
Well, especially if it costs the same or more than the S90D, S90C.
They have to
If
lower the
you can get the
price.
S90C on wholesale liquidation clearance because it's 2023, run, right? Don't walk, run. That thing will be a killer TV. And the C3 hopefully discounts hit hard, which should be okay. But the C4, first half of the year, way too expensive. But I do want to address M Mail's question, this year MLA or previous. It's not the MLA, it's the processor. So it's actually G3 bright with the old processor or G4 slightly brighter with a new processor. Forget the brightness. It's that processor that should make the difference. But again, we're making a lot of promises based on paper promises, right? We will get the TV in spring when like right when it releases. The Robert of Value Electronics will have the latest G4 and the latest Samsung QN900D to compare against the S95D and last year's Sony A95L and G3 to see, all right, is the G4 really better, brighter, better processing? Is that 8K processor from Samsung really doing what they say it's doing? And we try to find content that will do that. And then that maybe the S90C is there, but the S95C is so close it could serve as a proxy. But ultimately, all of this is great at CES, but we still have to put it to an actual content test side by side. And that's probably coming up in March, I'm hoping. Late March, Brian, like we did last year.
Yep.
So don't make the decision yet, ML, because it really goes down to the graphics processor or the image processor for the G4.
Oh, and lastly,
And
they also had the Z series that they're bringing, but it sounds like
which
it's
was last year's
which sounds
Z3.
like last year's Z3. The problem with last year's Z3 is it doesn't have the 11 processor. And I thought it didn't have MLA. I mean, we thought last year the 77 had MLA FOMO, not the 88. David said that he believed both of them did.
Mhm,
Maybe that's why they're not calling it MLA. Maybe it is just a processing thing, but the Z series will be back. It will be the only 8K OLED on the market.
mhm.
But for many of you, it's still going to be 30 grand. Very hard to recommend.
Yeah. And for the G4, the unique image processor that they have that I'm excited about is called AI Directors Processor, something like that, AI Directorial
Procedural. Yeah,
Processor,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It was like, yeah.
Yeah. And then MLA applies to LG displays, hardware layer. LG Electronics, the TV will not recognize the term MLA, but they call it LCA, light construction architecture, something like that. So
Something like that.
it's they want to make sure we know that it's not just the MLA. It's the software and how they control it, because they said in the future, if they replace MLA with something else, it's still going to be LCA, like Trinitron, right? Or what is it? Not, it wasn't Trinitron. It was the
Oh, it
Sony's
was the Triluminous.
Triluminous. Yeah,
Yeah,
Triluminous
Triluminous.
has no meaning, right? So now, is TCL coming with an OLED? They have an OLED in prototype. It's the inkjet printed OLED. They have it on display, but it's mostly for notebooks and monitors. So they have one. It's not yet for sale in terms of for a TV. Like I have an inkjet printed OLED right here, 32-inch monitor that I use for my video editing. And it's from TCL, right? Asus packaged it into a monitor, but the TV version of the inkjet printed needs to get brighter. The current one is not bright enough for HDR. It's great for SDR and low brightness HDR, but really it needs to hit 2000 nits now. I mean, that's the new thing for sure. And thank you, Tarish, for that super chat. Any indication from Samsung if and when they might manufacture a quantum OLED panel, QD OLED panel larger than 77-inch? Just joined the dream, so sorry if I already asked. Nope, you just asked it. And Brian, what did they say?
First of all, let's start it over this way. Samsung Display didn't say anything.
Nope.
Schrag is a big boy too. He's elusive, like a boxer. Well, every brief we got was, especially for the bigger manufacturers, any of the people in front of the TVs will tell us everything we need to know, right, FOMO? And every one of those folks couldn't tell us anything. They could tell us it is a TV, it is here, it is large. Next. So
yeah, they wouldn't even commit to the model number. They go, well, we're thinking S85D. It may or may not come.
Like, it was almost like, can you put at least? So these are the 4K. Yeah, I think those are the 4K. This is the 8K here. Right. I'm like, you can't.
I even asked them, is that a QN90D? No, we don't know what the model number is. That's just the 4K. Right. Is that your best?
It could be. And then you don't know if the guy actually knows. So it was funny. So yeah, which I mean, it's great because I don't have to be accurate with my information. There wasn't any. So
yeah.
Anyway.
And so some interesting questions. FOMO, do you think we will ever get an OLED that's small enough to be dropped in replacements for CRT RGB arcade monitors? Probably not, only because if you notice, even CRT RGB monitors, they were getting burned by after like a few years, right? Yeah, so I think this will always be the domain of just LCD, maybe mini LED LCD. Yeah. OLED's not going to last in the arcade world. It's
because you sit there with the game over sign, but also the aspect ratio, they're not making them that size. I mean, they're going ultra wide with a lot of those monitors, Mitsu. So it's the monitors they have are absolutely stunning. But FOMO, very much like what you said about the manufacturer, when they show us an ultra wide monitor, that thing is 2000 nits. When I see one from Samsung, it's 200 nits. So there's definitely a disconnect where when I went to go buy the G9, whatever it's called, when people measured that and said it was like 400 nits, I'm like, there's no way I'm buying a QD OLED ultra wide. I'll just buy an S90 55-inch. So it's interesting. It's all going to be about what the manufacturer does with the technology.
Now, this is a great question because you just did a video on this. I did not see the Panasonic booth because I'm like, why break my heart any further? Because I'm commenting on TV I will never see in person.
Yeah.
However, Brian, you could not resist the broken heart that you are. This is a TV that you fell in love with years ago, your first love. Did you stop by the Panasonic booth to see their OLEDs?
I did. So right now, I have a video on Panasonic right now. I saw their new MLA WRGB OLEDs. So I'll put the link in the comment right now for it. It's great, but it's obviously bittersweet because we're never going to see them. But then again, their 77-inch doesn't have MLA. So it was really their 55 and 65. It was very cool to see. Or I'll put it in the chat. It was very, very cool to see. I wanted to just at least represent and show them. But and like FOMO and I secretly have this conversation all the time. Every time we talk about the best TVs in the world. All right, guys, there's the link right there to the video if you guys want to see the Panasonic one. Every year when him and I are talking about the best TVs that we saw, someone undoubtedly says, what about the Z9, Z? And all I can say is that, is that you can't win if you don't play. And could we import
But they did win in Europe. They won in Europe.
They won in Europe. Now, could we? And then people were killing me for this about why we don't import them. So one, the power cord. It's not like we I don't know if that's gonna work with an adapter, but as far as firmware updates, they're by region half the time. So
Mhm.
us getting one and putting it out there, if it's not updated and it gets beat, there's gonna always it just opens up a whole thing. We have no contact with the engineers to know how if there's any
Mhm.
issues, so it would be at a major disadvantage.
Here's a great question because Leo, I
Oh,
did not
Leo,
ask this
handsome.
specifically, right? This is a good question though. Brian
It is.
FOMO, did Samsung mention if the 900D, that's the 8K flagship from Samsung, will be capable of 144 hertz 4K gaming, and did they hit 4,000 nits? So they did not talk about brightness on the 8K. So sad
Nothing.
to say
Nope.
that they would not commit to that. Now, as far as gaming, they showed off 8K gaming,
Yeah.
which probably was 8K 60. However, Hisense showed off 8K 120
Yeah.
capable TVs.
Mhm.
Now, the 900D, can it do 144 hertz 4K gaming? We'll have to ask Samsung that. I didn't ask. Were you able to see if that was the
No, but
thing?
I could have swore I heard them mention it, but I think it's that by default. So it'll have the same capabilities as last year's QN95, which look, and I know a lot of PC gamers are going to disagree with me. I've tried 144 hertz on the Samsung QD OLEDs and on the QN95. I don't really notice the difference between 120 and 144. It's always double the refresh rate that you notice 30, 60,
Yeah.
120, 240. So 144 is a cool thing. I think LG will probably be the best at it because they've really doubled down with NVIDIA, which we didn't just talk about FOMO. They really talked about NVIDIA, even though they don't have the module FOMO, they really said the certification does matter. They'll probably be the ones to get the 144 hertz right. But if the 8K does it, Leo, it'll just be 4K 144. It wouldn't be 8K.
Yeah, if. And here, so let's put us on the spot because we spoke Samsung. We just finished talking about LG. We're going to talk about Hisense, Sony, and TCL shortly. But before we move on, this is a great question. Put us on the spot. So, is Samsung going to be the most impressive TV brand again this year? How is the G4 going to compare? So I'll answer first. Samsung will be the most impressive in terms of diversity of offerings. You got the frame, you got cheap TVs, you got expensive QD OLED, you have expensive, like top-notch 8K with the best processor, and you have a decently good Neo QLED 4K. LG is a one-trick pony this year. The C4 is basically the C3 with some minor incremental processing improvements. The G4 is their star. It's got the better MLA/panel update to make it a little bit brighter. It's got the better processor that no other TV has. The QNED is a huge disappointment based on the processor is a step down from the C4, right? It's only a Alpha 8, whereas the C4 is an Alpha
I think
9.
it's I think it's
And
seven.
right.
Seven.
And now the LG is offering more sizes. You're going to get more 98-inch sizes. So they have two QNEDs. They have an edge lit QNED and the QNED that's the mini LED. But again, I feel those two are just not going to compete with Hisense and TCL. Now at the flagship level, let's talk about that. At the below flagship, I think Samsung will dominate LG. At the flagship level, we're talking the G4. How do you think the G4 is going to compare? I know you have strong feelings about this, Brian.
So my favorite TV of the whole show, one TV is the G4. I love the G3. I think the G4. Granted, if we all go and measure it and it's 2,150 minutes, I think but that's one singular TV, which is what they did last year with the G3. Because Samsung has not upped their game to fight the G4, it's going to be by itself. That's the one
And the
TV.
G4 specifically, based on my discussions with others who've spoken or know about what LG Display is doing, it appears that uniformity has been addressed in the off season. I guess that's the best way to describe it. So the G4 should have
Mm.
improved uniformity over the G3, allowing it to actually win the shootout this year. And I want it to win because I'm kind of sick of Sony winning all the time, frankly.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
thought that the Samsung should have beaten the Sony last year at the shootout. I mean, that was like my thing, right? If it's accurate to the reference monitor, I thought the Samsung came a little bit closer. And that's why the S90C is my TV of the year. But this year, whole new year. And then I have to revisit how funny this is. And I think was it Classy that mentioned it. When you have a blind test and you have the Samsung S95D with a matte screen, I'm sorry, you cannot double blind that matte screen.
I feel like,
Oh, there's the Samsung.
it's right there. I mean,
So
as a
basically,
company, I would say TCL was very impressive because the QM8 was a killer last year. The Q7 this year is basically the QM8, and then they have a new QM8, right? So to me,
yes,
they're 1-2 punch of that, and like Bruce they're very bullish and brash. Their TVs were just naked. They had them all over the floor. They
yeah,
didn't have one or two. They literally, I shot the same TVs 5 times. I thought they were different. They were the same ones. They went the S5, Q7. Um, I'm sorry, yeah, the S5, the QM8, the Q7. They had those everywhere, a bunch of them, nothing hidden. So I love their approach. Um, but I would go G4 fully. The most impressive thing I saw that was real was the 800. I'm sorry, the 900D's upscaling. But I don't
mhm.
know if the 900 itself, FOMO, is much better than the 900C.
And we'll have to see,
Yeah,
right?
so I don't know.
And
And what I saw from Sony, which we can talk about, blew everything away. So 4,000
hey,
nits, local
we need
dimming,
to talk about Sony too.
backlight
Yeah,
master drive for real. That beat everything at the show, which I think Sony is poised in the LED. And I'm gonna have Rob Brendan come on the channel explain it to you guys. But if that TV comes out the way we think it is, it's incredible.
and we don't know when the Sony event is. I know you guys are asking, hey, when's the Sony TV event? I literally texted our contact, our good friend at Sony, and she said, we'll keep you posted, trust me. So they're not yet ready to release even when that event is. And
It'll
Getty
probably
G
be
Man has a great
March. Probably
question.
March.
I'm guessing March too. Have you checked the sphere while you were there? We saw the sphere off. I
We
because
walked
at
by it.
night I was just video editing.
We were sleeping anyway.
We we were either sleeping or running around in the convention
We
center.
didn't.
We
For one,
never
I
had a
didn't leave the
chance to breathe.
hotels other than go to another hotel. So I
Yeah.
want you guys to understand, real quick. Me and this guy are there for a reason. So we really didn't pal around. We didn't drink one time. We were there to train and film. Now it sounds kind of boring, but in
We didn't
order
get
to
the
do
training though, but we did a lot of filming.
we
There
had
was
a
no
lot of
training for
filming,
me.
but to go 12, 13, 14 hours and then try to do like so when my Hisense video, I had to refilm the audio because I fell asleep. So I was snoring in the audio. So that's how we were grinding. We really, and as much as I love the other influencers, I'd love to have hung out with them. We just really didn't have time. So
Yeah.
it's only gonna get worse and better for us. So it really wasn't fun in that regard. We had a mission, and I think we really accomplished that.
Yeah, and I felt kind of bad because a lot of the guys, hey, you're gonna go to eat dinner? No, I'm editing. Hey, Brian, you want to go eat dinner? No, I'm editing. And then even
Yeah.
Robert Zone, oh, Brian, I'll take you out to dinner tonight. No,
I'm
I'm
hanging out
sorry,
with
Robert.
Jen and
I have a
Brandon. We're like,
deadline.
we were ready. Yeah, we did go out to dinner with Sony one night, which was great. But it was it was just it'll be even more business going forward. So
And speaking of business, I want to address Telford's question. Stop the FOMO. Did you ask Panasonic guys why they're not in the US? So, no, I didn't ask them, but I'll tell you why though, because I do know why they left the US. So, you have to sell enough TVs to run a business. The problem is
yeah,
when you are selling TVs, it's not just selling TVs, support, warranty, repair, and replacement.
oh, good
That
point.
part of it
Yeah.
costs so much money. And when you're selling TVs, it's not, oh, how many TVs do I have to sell to support the cost of building the TV? It's the support of cost of building and post-sale support. Warranty service center for a TV is so expensive. Support, all of that. And Panasonic simply could not sell enough TVs to support the entire thing at a break-even point. I think if they were break-even, they would have
It would,
stayed. They
yeah.
were losing money. And so for them to come back, they have to project enough sales to cover that entire consumer 1-year warranty, 2-year warranty, whatever that is. And they just don't see it. If they're not coming back, it's
Yeah.
because the cost of supporting correctly, we're talking, Sony level, Samsung level support, not fly by night. It's too much. The volume simply isn't there for Panasonic.
Well, and for all you guys that, and you guys can help me in the chat, was the last TVs that came out with the plasmas, the ZT60 and the Z6, the ZT and the VT60. They were probably the best TVs in the world at that time. They were double the price, double the energy FOMO, double the materials. The stands were very elaborate, and very cheap LED TVs were smacking the crap out of them. They were, and unfortunately, too, even in the Magnolias FOMO, they put them next to each other, And it wasn't like an OLED and a LED in a dark room, the OLED would win. It was they were so bright and plasmas just weren't bright enough. They looked perfect alone. But from what
Yeah.
I understand, Panasonic knew they made the superior product, and also FOMO, they were capped at 65. And Sharp had already done 70-inch TVs at that point. They knew there was just nowhere to go. And they just knew that they were just going to keep losing money with a superior product, which is why I think they did one more year of cheaper LEDs and then they took off.
Aaron has
Our
a great
fault.
question. Right, all of us. Good question, Aaron. Do you think other brands will aim for Pantone accreditation or just another talking point for marketing? So, Aaron, this was
feature.
available last year, but you have to remember this. Ever since they released the QD OLED, which has received this Pantone accreditation, I think at least since last year, all of us as reviewers have noticed that out of the box, the Samsung has been pretty close to accurate. Yes, going to a calibrator helps that last 3%, but it has never been more accurate. So filmmaker mode on the Samsung is so good. You could get it calibrated, but if you didn't, you really weren't missing out that much. That's my feel. And that is no coincidence because I think the Pantone helps its out of the box accuracy. And so it continues that this year. So I think this Pantone thing was available last year at least. I don't remember seeing it in the first release of the S95 because that was a surprise. It wasn't even at CES, right? I think it was like just hidden somewhere. But now that it's a thing, you will notice out of the box accuracy where most people like, great, I don't have to get a, unlike the TCL in years past where you definitely need help to get those lips less magenta. I think Samsung filmmaker is great.
But FOMO, isn't it great though? So if you guys miss Samsung being Samsung, you got TCL there, baby. That's the spiritual successor to what Samsung did. Now, Pushing Baligan said he had a VT60. Pushing, tell me how much the VT60 cost at launch. And the Most Disliked channel said the backlight of the Z9D is still the best. Now, I spoke to Rob Brennan about that at dinner, and he agrees that the backlight master drive on the Z9D was more capable. However, nobody remembers that the Z9D off angle fell apart, which is why the Z9F went for that terrible X-wide viewing angle. So we all live in this world where we think the Z9D was the end-all be-all. Rob still has his, and he says no one ever remembers stepping aside and going, damn, the 940E had better off-angle viewing. But I think you guys will be very happy to see what the LED market's going to do this year because the full array is unreal what it does.
So I would love to address Mizu's comment because I think this is what they're addressing. 8K is pointless. Why would I want to upscale all the greatest content ever made that will ever be made? All the 35mm films, like the 500s to 2010s. So let me give you the new narrative. And whether or not this is true, we'll test it because I've tested it before and I did not find it to be true. But this year, it may be. So this is why 8K, this is 8K from Samsung's point of view. It's not so much for you to watch 8K content, but rather they feel that if you match the best processor power with 8K, they can make everything look better at 8K, meaning they can take 1080p and on an 8K TV, it will look better than your 4K TV because they feel that the additional resolution gives it a more realistic feel. And now whether that is true or not, we're gonna have to test it again. I did not find it previously, so we'll see for 2024. But that is the narrative. Not so much an 8K panel to watch 8K content, but the 8K panel is the superior panel to watch 4K and below. And that's why they showed off, look, 1080p upscale to 8K looks better than 1080p upscale to 4K. So they're comparing the 4K TV with their 8K, and the 8K did look better. It did look sharper, upscaling like 480, 720, and 1080 because of the additional AI. Now, my argument is if you took that same processor and put it in the 4K, maybe it looks the same, but maybe that's why they didn't do it. So
well, and
if
that's
you want access to that, you got to.
And that's what Mitsu. I think Mitsu's point is also, if I have a film, and this is where they're going to run into problems, where you want that field of view, you want that gritty look. If you're going to upscale it, as Mayoko Best Girl mentioned, basically DLSS NVIDIA. Is it something you're really going to want? But here's the thing: unlike XR Clear, you can disable it. So what's going to be cool for me and FOMO, we do comparisons. The S95C destroyed the 900C. When we put them against each other.
No,
So
go
anyway,
ahead, go ahead.
real quick, when we put this together next year, what we're gonna be able to do is enable the 900D's processing to be able to see it cleaner, and it should beat them both by quite a bit.
Mhm. And to me, quote of the day, what's less reflective, Samsung's S95D or FOMO's glasses? That, you know
That's
what? My
exactly.
glasses all day long.
So picture FOMO's glasses and his skin level being a little dimmer.
Yeah,
That would be the
a little
matte
matte.
eyelids.
But that's the beautifier working, guys. The wrinkles are gone.
That's
And
awesome.
hey, yeah, thanks, Crypto, for that
What's
reminder.
up,
We have
crypto?
almost 500 people in
Damn.
chat. Everyone, click the hit like button, subscribe.
And
You know
please
you
go
love
over to
us.
my
We love
channel and
you.
say hi. And what's funny, FOMO has all these Korean fans that just thought that I was his bodyguard.
Oh yes. So
They're
this is
like,
so unexpected. Apparently, I'm a big hit in Korea,
he's
right?
like David Hasselhoff in Germany. What's
Yeah,
up, Glenn?
that's it. I'm walking around all these, and hello, Korea, if you're here.
What's up,
I had
Dylan?
so many unexpected Korean fans who ran up to me and took selfies and everything, and they keep on saying, "FOMO, you're famous in Korea." I'm
They
like,
said nothing about
"Serious?
TVs, by the way. You would think that he
No
was
TVs, right?"
singing. They're like, "Hey, get a picture with you. Get a picture with you, big guy. Take that picture." So I take the picture.
I'm like a K-pop star. I should be selling beer
I
in
don't know what
Korea.
he really does.
I mean, I got like old Taiwanese guys. I guess in Asia, it's
Yeah,
a
they were
whole
older.
different culture, right? I know, but it's like, like wow, I'm like a cult of personality in Asia. In the
Yeah,
glasses, and the gloves, man, branding. I
yeah.
love you all.
They thought I was his bodyguard. I was his handler.
Oh yeah, and then okay, so like I'm 5'6", and Brian is like 6'4" and change, and so and then not only that, when we're filming, if someone walks in front of us, this giant arm sweeps out and body blocks them, and there's this radius of fear where they just freeze as I shoot. I'm like, yes,
So
Brian's giant
I'm filming
arm.
with my left hand the camera, and I'm filming with another hand camera on a tripod. And as they're walking up, they have their heads down. I just stick my arm out to block them, and I just give them a look, and and my
No,
hand
without making
don't
a
say a
sound.
word.
It was just a glare, and it created a wave that froze people for like 10
Yeah, I
feet
was just like,
all the way out. They just froze. And I was like, oh, I need to bring Brian to every CES show. That was
oh
just
my god.
amazing.
Well,
It
you're
just like
stuck with me now, so
boom.
we're a package deal apparently.
I'm
And we didn't
loving it.
see
Now,
anybody else. I mean, I really wanted to catch up with some other guys. I know we saw Brandon, KG, and Tech
Caleb,
Steve and Caleb. We saw Caleb a couple times, but as far as
yeah.
him and I were and that's the way it's gonna be, you know. So uh
Now let's see. We talked Samsung, LG, Sony. We don't know what their 2024 model lineup is, so we're going to skip Sony for now. At
yeah,
CES, they did show off that mini LED, so we could address that. So it's called the Sony Black Box Secret event at the Mirage.
not an
So
official name, by the
you
way.
went, no, not an official name. It just means that no one gets to see it except a select few media members and so forth. But I think eventually everyone. Oh, and when we got there, who did we see? But ratings, like, oh hey,
So
right? So it
that
was like,
that was my
oh,
coolest
first,
moment
it was so
was
awesome to see
I
them.
was talking to Rob and Fomo was talking to somebody. And he's like, Brian, come here, come here, come here. I turn around and it was ratings.
The entire team. We're talking
Who I
like
love the
four,
team,
five,
other
six
than
guys.
Cedric. And he's like, "Can I get a picture of you guys?" I'm like, "Can I get a picture?" That was the coolest moment because I love what they've done for years. And I think you know what's I know we couldn't say this publicly, and I won't say it publicly, but ratings methodology, which is so cool, is they are getting together with some of the manufacturers to all be in line so ratings methodology matches because some of these TVs I think are doing poorly FOMO because the testing actually may disable it or so it's cool that ratings is I don't know if they've been there years past but they were there this year which is awesome and they're around so they're
And
great
just
guys.
to tell you guys what a good job they're doing with that longevity test. Without naming names, TV manufacturers are reaching out to them
Yeah,
and saying, your test is changing how
yeah,
we manufacture
we
in
should
order
monetize that
to
FOMO.
avoid those issues, right?
Yeah.
And so they're asking for these reports from ratings, and I love it. I love it.
Yes, and then they should. And
And
what's cool about ratings too is ratings is so approachable. Especially FOMO's
mhm.
done it in the past with them. I've talked to them on Messenger. They'll never say they're right. They want to make things better. They have none of that. They want to know, and the fact that they buy their own stuff. I mean, they're awesome. Hopefully, they can monetize that FOMO and do that testing for some money for the manufacturers. Might be a way for them to make some money.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll break it for you.
And before we jump to the next super chat, I just want to hit what we saw at Sony. So the focus at the Sony event was the new mini LED, all new technology. They have better sub-pixel, or rather, better dimming zone control to give you deeper blacks without blooming, and that's key. And their focus is, and they bring this up, and it was exactly what I've been complaining about Samsung. Deep blacks, but they dim the highlights. And Sony's like, we do not want to dim the highlights. We had to find a way to give you accurate blacks while preserving specular highlights, which they did with the X90L, by the way. I mean, there's still some, obviously, contrast is increased or decreased, slight blooming, but that specular highlight was there with all the shadow detail. And so Sony's like, now, with more dimming zones that are controlled at the zone level to a greater degree than any other TV maker. And so this is what they said. And this is something that I think is not understood well. Each dimming zone, right? You either turn it on with a mini LED and it's bright, or you turn it off.
Off.
It's either on, off, and maybe there's one in between, like mid dim, right?
Yep.
Sony has a 16-bit or 20-bit, I mean, multi-bit version that goes from super bright to off with a bunch of gradations in between.
It
And
shapes
so
the
when they,
image.
yes, when you strip out the LCD part and you just look at the dimming zone and mini LED, the Sony, you could actually see the images. I mean, of course, it's large, blurry, but the competing TVs, in this case, it was Samsung, much more raw, much more unrefined. And this is the first time Sony's done it. So it's not like you're getting this previously.
No.
And when we asked, wait, this sounds like it's a huge jump, because he was comparing it to the Z9D. This is what the control they were going for, the Z9D. And this is the genesis of the Z9D. Like, wait a minute, this is your true successor to Backlight Master Drive then? He goes, yeah, I guess it is. I go, well, you wasted it on the X95K.
Well,
But
they've been
essentially,
calling.
this is
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Yeah,
and
this
the way
is your
they
Backlight Master Drive.
the way they showed it for us was pretty awesome. And again, I'll have pictures of this to show you guys. They basically cut the screen in half. They had the QN90 QN90C, I believe, and they had the prototype cut in half. And what's interesting is on the backlight with content playing, the Samsung was completely blue with
Mhm.
no matter what was on screen, logos, it was either on or it was off. The Sony, you could see transparent shapes, meaning everything that was on screen, you saw an outline, meaning the zones were around, the gradation was around each shape. So
Mhm.
it was just so intricate. And what he was trying to say is, even though they've added a ton of zones, by the way. First time I've ever heard Sony say that. There's going to be
Triple.
many
I think they
triple
say
zones now
triple the zones.
that they're still,
And yeah.
but they're still sticking with whether they do triple or quadruple, the algorithm will always be more important than just adding more and more zones. And we've seen that FOMO too, where XLED, 5,000 zones, 40,000 zones, there's a point where they're so together, there's
Yeah.
very little they can do.
You have to control those zones. And before we get to your question, Jerry, I see you. I want to say that those who missed out on the Z9D, right? Whether you were born too late, didn't have the money, or didn't
910
think
came out.
Z9D was a great thing, this next generation mini LED, this is your chance to get that Z9D. Based
And
on what
yeah.
we've been shown, this is truly the Z9D's next gen successor that took how long? 6 years,
Well,
7 years to get
and
here. It's back.
more importantly, FOMO, what this will do is it will make, when you talk about micro contrast of OLED, no matter how bright an LED is, if it's washed out, it can't get the contrast ratio, it'll never beat an OLED.
No.
What this thing can do will. It was put up against the QD OLED and it looked better. It looked more true to
Mhm.
life. So it may give you that micro LED stopgap. However, micro LEDs aren't very bright. This will be 4,000 nits and have that blooming control where Sam or Sony wants to do shadow detail, but so FOMA, it'll give you the micro contrast. And it'll be where this time next year, if this TV comes out, that TV behind me is going somewhere else, and I will go from OLED to my LED dreams will come true.
And
So
and let's get real on one thing. Rob was very clear. This is not, it cannot replace OLED. Rob was very clear, like, at what OLED is good at. you have to get an OLED. This is 4,000 nit content. You want extreme highlights in a slightly bright scene. No OLED could do that. This TV can, but if you're talking critical viewing below 1,000 nits, your OLED will destroy any non-OLED. But given the realities of a bright room, large TV size, and 4,000 nits, this TV has a space. It has a place in your potential buying roadmap. Now, Jerry, great question. Any idea what's going on with the demand, the supply of the A95L? We're talking the 77 inches, right? So the 77 inch has been sold out for a while. One place that is not sold out is Robert Zone Value Electronics. He has his own allocation. Now, he might be sold out today, but as of before the new year, on our last live stream, he still had some. So reach out to Value Electronics, tell them FOMO sent you, Brian sent you, and let them, hey, they told us that you might have a 77-inch A95L. He will tell you when you'll get it, when his allocation will be, if he doesn't have any. If he has it, he'll say, you know what? It's out to you. He will not only match any price anywhere, but he'll also tax-free if you're outside of New York. So he'll pay the tax and he'll give you 5% credit to pick up whatever accessories you want in the store as well. You know, soundbar, HTA9, whatnot. But definitely reach out to Robert. As far as the 77-inch, it's been sold out at Best Buy for, I don't know, since Black Friday. I think Black Friday was the last time it was in stock, and it's just been sold out since then.
The good thing about the A95L is they're building more. It's not like it's a G3 that came out at a certain time, so you're going to see more of them.
This is a good question because I think it's nuanced right here. Nilate buds. I don't know if I pronounced that. Nilate your buds. How important is it to pick a TV on processing when exclusively streaming content with the PS5 Series X? So the processing still has an important layers. So whether it's Sony or Samsung or whatnot, whatever you're streaming for the PS5 is a pass-through. They're not processing anything, right? They're sending you whatever it is, and then your TV takes it and does with it whatever it is. This is not a Shield. The Shield will upscale, does some stuff, right? The PS5, as far as I know, does nothing. So it's something to think about is if you want processing, PS5, Series X, Apple TV, whatever it is, other than the Shield, the TV will do a lot of that heavy lifting as far as upscaling and low bitrate content. I think the Sony XR Clear is one of the best in the business, but only if you're complaining. If you think your processing is fine, don't overthink it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brian is so honest, it makes me laugh. Brian?
I don't know about all that. I wish I got a chance to see some of you guys in person though. That would have been cool.
Oh, M-Wave is a great chance. It's just giant room,
M-Wave
us, and a bunch of TVs.
And M-Wave, I'd say M-Wave versus even the shootout and CES. M-Wave is a chance for us and you guys to actually play with the TVs. So somebody, I think Efron said, I wish you guys would use 4K content. So for anybody that sees our videos, I know FOMO puts more real content in his videos. So you know what we show you on YouTube is not what we judge the TVs on. It's just all I can show you. Every TV that I review, I watch tons of real content, but I cannot risk, and I won't risk my channel doing copyright. I can't tell you how hard it is for a creator to have a video up and then have it struck down. And one strike can take the channel away. So I know you guys want to see real movies. I won't do that. So I work too hard to build the channel, but when I review a TV, I have watched 4K content, but I can only show you material that's why Jen is so generous with her content. I can't show you movies, guys. Copyright is brutal, especially from HBO. I mean, it can end our careers. So I'm just letting you guys know why you're not seeing movies done.
Sure. Dylan?
What's up, Dylan?
Great question. Yes, we did talk about it, but I'll talk about it again because I think it's innovative enough to address. Hey guys, just joined your stream. Did you see thoughts on that quantum dot electroluminescent screen QDEL that Caleb did a video on? I think it was maybe today's video, unless you spoke about it earlier. So I did not see it personally because it was a last minute add-on where they just, hey, this is here. And when I spoke to Nanosys, they're like, yeah, they didn't expect them to show it off. They were supposed to be in stealth mode, and they went back to stealth mode immediately, right? Like, oh, maybe we're not ready to meet the press on this, because I immediately reached out to Nanosys and say, hey, I got to talk to the Sharp development team. This is important. And they're like, yeah, they went back into hiding. However, They will be out in force at Display Week, ISD, this spring, I think late spring. I'll be there covering it. So we will get an exclusive look at the Sharp QL display. Now, how far is it from TV? All the specs we won't know until we get there. But I'll tell you this, because it's a prototype, forget brightness, forget anything. The fact that it's working at all, that's where we are right now. Now, it may take years, it may take months, but they're going to have to create a manufacturing process. So what you guys don't understand is at the prototype level, there's no manufacturing. It's just handmade just to get it to work with one machine, right? Whether it's inkjet printed or whatever. But to scale it, to then sell it like Samsung Display sells, 1 million panels to Samsung Electronics and Sony, or LG Display selling 10 million OLED panels to everyone. Sharp is not ready to sell 1 million or 10 million. They're still in that R&D phase, just showing off where they are right now. Until they're ready to get to the manufacturing at scale phase, it's going to be a while, but it's exciting to see that it's actually working, because the last prototype I saw was missing the blue. Apparently, this one has the blue. So yeah,
kind of important color to have.
Yeah.
And
Alan, this is a great point from Alan. Thank you for the super chat, Alan. Will the S95D be matte only, or will there be two SKUs? One matte, one gloss. And we've seen Samsung do this with their TO95 series. Remember, Brian? In Europe, you got one with one connect, one without. One with better audio, one with ADS, one with VA. I mean, they have so many SKUs running on the TO95. So, Alan, this is why Samsung was so clear and emphatic when they said, we don't know what the final model numbers will be.
I almost you almost just said, we don't know what the it sounded like you
so close.
Bro, for a minute, I thought you were about to curse. He's like, yo, we don't know what the final numbers might be. I was like, I almost
if YouTube AI is in real time, I may have gotten miscensored.
You went at that hard. We don't know what the final numbers are. But that's why, guys, honestly, that's why I didn't bother reviewing the Q90C last year. Robert had, I think, a 65. I had like a day to pick it up. KG had one size. He was in this battle about which was which. And Robert's like, well, I'm not really sure. I'm like, honestly, I don't want to bring it home, review it, and then find out that there's different panels for every size. So I hope they don't keep. I wouldn't mind if they did FOMO better audio. Then price it accordingly. That'd be fine. But last year, the Q95 was much better quality than a Q90. I think this year they're going to dissolve that. So it was a one-off. Plus, you guys couldn't buy the Q95. So it didn't.
Yeah. Installer only. Yeah. And to the second half of your question, Alan, also, have they fixed the gray issue with the coating? So, no, it got worse. So the gray issue on the S95C with the coating, now you don't even have to shine a light on it. If the room is bright, it's gray, right? And that's what I pointed out to Florian. Florian, is it me or is it gray? No, it's gray, but turn off the lights.
Alan,
then it became black.
Then we'll give you a sneak peek of our video. So the demo had an eye in a dark room, like it was like eating dinner. It was pretty cool. WRGB OLED on the left, and then you had the S95 on the side. When the lights were on, I'm telling you, you lost half the image of the WRGB OLED, right, FOMO? You could barely see any of it because the reflections were so strong. However, what was left looked superior, clean, bright, detailed. The S95C, you could see the entire image, but that image looked like a washed out LED. So then I challenged and said, do you mind turning off the lights? And he did. And it was amazing. The blacks came back. The blacks and the WRGB were still better. That is my problem.
About that. Slightly better, not
slightly is all we're talking about these days.
And better than LCD mini LED. So let's say it would be between OLED gloss, but better than mini LED. Contrast being what it is. However, you're right. I think what they are doing with that matte film is all that light is scattered so well that it raises slightly everything. Affecting the contrast in a bright room. No doubt.
I mean, very impressive technology, guys. I mean, it is awesome. But for those of you, and this is what I said about the LG CX when it was going through its raise blacks thing. If you raise blacks on an OLED at all, you defeat the purpose of it.
Mhm.
That's its greatest
I know.
strength. If you take away micro contrast and you raise it even a little, I don't mean broken Dolby Vision and that crap. I mean, if you raise it, now LEDs can jump back in. But
Or
forget
how
about
about
LED.
this? Well, Brian, how about this? If someone said, "I wish the frame came in an OLED," this is their
Done.
response,
Done.
right?
If your wife
I
wants
would,
an
because
OLED frame, we got
one
you.
connect, one connect box, right? I mean, the frame isn't cheap,
Not even
and this falls, and without calling it the frame, essentially, this is the best frame OLED you're going to get, right?
and who wanted
And
that?
apparently, a lot of people, because they're top seller. Now, Eugene Skillful, if you love the Z9D, hold your breath, save up for this new mini LED. This is
Oh,
your
yeah.
second shot at the Z9D. And I want to
Thank you, man.
laugh.
I cannot
Nico
wait to shoot this
Ferrari,
thing for you.
this is a great comment because there's the other side of it. Hey guys, how low do you think a 21.9 TV would sell versus a 16.9, right? So right over 16.9.
You remember that?
21.9, you have the black bars on top. Now here's the problem. I know I tried it 10 years ago, it failed, but maybe it would be a big hit now. No black bars. Well, here's the issue. If you're watching full widescreen content, no black bars. But if you're watching 16:9 content, which is everything else, you get black bars on the side, right?
Black
So
bars on the
instead
side.
of black, you got the black bars on the side. Now,
So-
I prefer black
yeah.
bars on the side personally, but now your screen is that much shorter. But yeah,
So Nico would,
yeah,
what Nico would
Go
like
ahead.
though, and honestly, when they did the 21:9 TVs back in the day, they were small. So they looked like wide monitors now. But FOMO, that Hisense dual projector setup, you'd like this Ferrari, is that they went from 16:9, two of them separated, and then they combined to a 21:9. That was actually pretty cool. And on a projector, you don't care about black bars. It just looks like a really cool image. So I thought that was awesome.
yeah, me too. And I think there was one more super chat.
Please, how are you,
Or
my
a
dear?
few more. Hey, Christian, did we see a 98-inch Q900D, Brian? I don't think that was a 98.
There
That was
was
an
the
85.
98. The 98-inch was in the actual
Micro
Samsung
LED?
booth. I got a little footage of it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean,
So I didn't see it personally, but shows being what they are, it's like a Best Buy. You don't really know how good it is, right? But 98-inch size, it's not going to be cheap. I think it was last time they had a 98-inch 8K was like 25,000, so it's not going to be cheap at all.
was it
Best
actually?
image processing.
Was it actually? Did they have the 98-inch 8K? Which
They
one
had
was
the
that one?
900B. I think the 900A or 900B was 98-inch, and it was insanely expensive. I think it was like 25,000 or something like that. Sorry. 8K Samsung. I'll look it up right now. Samsung 98-inch.
Somebody's asking about the biker chick.
Wow.
Holmes, Brian, please let me know which demo you have in the background with the biker chick.
You're back in
It's the
2019. It was
it's the
100,000.
Hisense.
So.
It's a Hisense demo. Just look up Hisense. You should see it. Love
Here
the
we
biker.
go. The QN 990C. $40,000. So the 990C last year was 8K and $40,000 for the 98-inch, and it's out of stock, so you can even buy it last year if you wanted to. Okay, great question. Best image processing, Hisense or TCL? In 2023, it was definitely the Hisense. TCL color issues, motion is very raw. Now at CES, it's impossible because you're not allowed to use your own content. They use their content, so they all look great.
No, first of all, let's just stop it
better.
real quick though. The demo material was absolute crap on all the
Well,
TVs.
you
this
guys
year.
saw it.
This year, the TVs all had dudes breakdancing with bright. They tried to get every color they could, but it was all loud 80s, like breakdancing. Dudes were like playing tennis with yellow shirts just to try to show the content. We didn't have any cool teapots. There was no flames, but it was a lot of like, I was like waiting for that to end. A lot of astronauts, but FOMO, this year it was bad. Oh, Getty G Man, your U8K made a lot of it was at CES this year. We watched the gaming on it, and it was in the booth.
It was on the
Nice
gaming
TV.
chair, right? The
looked good,
Hisense gaming chair.
Yeah.
And that U8K set up as a gaming machine, I was impressed. I think they had maybe a PS5 or something like that attached to it.
And they
It
had
looked
it
good.
and they had it in the back with the U7, U6, and U8N.
And they had that one in the back as well.
And then look,
Yeah.
I tell you, Getty G, man, that's a great TV, man.
And the answer is yes. There is okay, so we don't know exact size type, but they are hitting 100-inch, 98-inch, as well as TCL. Whether it's a 100-inch U8N, I don't know. Let me
Why
see.
do
You
you,
know what?
Man? Why do you ask? Why do you ask that
Ready to
question?
upgrade?
Why are you asking,
Let me
baby?
see.
He's already,
Inch.
because you know right now, if G-Man, if it says no, he's gonna go. He's gonna get like Terry, where he
Yes,
has a Z9K. You're gonna have a 100-inch.
exactly.
There is gonna be one. Did you get it,
I
Holmes?
let's
Holmes
see.
got it, I think. Yeah, it's a cool demo. I think it's only SDR though, Holmes. And Holmes, you said, did you see me in person? Did you see us at CES? Did any of you guys see us? Were any of you guys there, by the way?
Yeah, you guys go there. So there's a 100-inch U7N, and the UX comes in a 98 and a 110. It looks like I'm just trying to look at real, and this is subject to change, by the way. You know, Hisense, they'll surprise us and introduce a size no one expected.
You know what TV was
I just
gorgeous
want to
was
double check.
the 75 UX was beautiful. Ultra thin. It's not coming, but that was a really nice TV. Did you have a chance to see that one, FOMO, the 75-inch UX?
Not coming to the US. I did that super thin mini LED,
Oh,
or
nice,
they
man.
said they said it's the thinnest mini LED at 75 inches available in the
Beautiful.
world.
Beautiful.
Now, okay, I think the U8K 100-inch is going to continue this year. So, Getty G man, you win.
We're
They
safe for
are
another
introducing
year.
a 100-inch U76N, which is not mini LED. So, for those who want the size but not the expense, you can get that. And let me see what the largest size is of the U8N. I think 85 inches is the U8Ns. But again, by the end of the year, they may surprise us and introduce a 100-inch U8N. But right now, I don't see it. But once Hisense launches the official lineup, because I think like everyone else, they're still, it's like, oh, we're not sure what we're going to bring to the market, right? They might, but right now, maybe not.
So G-Man's, look at this, FOMO. G-Man, I can't remember the other guy's name, but G-Man just white knuckled it. Between
He's
that
like,
question, he look at his hand, he's like, yes. Because he knows, first of all, you made money on that TV, but the fact that you had a whole nother year, you're like, yes. Very funny.
yes. And oh, well, it's time to talk Hisense and TCL. Great segue.
Let's do it.
Mizu asks, hey, Fromo, what do you think will happen to the Chinese TV brands should a conflict happen? And so the Chinese TV brands are definitely moving manufacturing to Mexico. I think TCL and Hisense have factories there. They're going to have to update the factories. The question is, just because it's being built in Mexico, does it mean we still get to buy it? So obviously the laws being what they are, they can circumvent that by creating an independent subsidiary that is established in Mexico or USA owned, whatever it is, they'll find a way around it. But having manufacturing in Mexico is a start, or maybe Canada. And they're getting ready for that because we are such a large market for both TCL and Hisense. Now, it depends on when conflict should happen, but I'll tell you now, it's less about conflict in the way we're seeing elsewhere in the world and more about a trade war, right? So if the trade conflict escalates where they start limiting even more electronics products or tariffing it to death, it could be a problem. And the price advantage of TCL and Hisense may be lost. But the good thing is that if you remove TCL and Hisense from the equation, you still have offerings from Samsung, Sony, and LG. Not quite the value, but for an extra 20%, I can't even make the argument. I think it'll be a huge loss. But I do think that Hisense and TCL have manufacturing in Mexico under an independent subsidiary that they could still brand as TCL. That could take over, but again, how big is that loophole? That's what it comes up with.
How
And
funny.
hey, how long do I have you, Brian?
So how funny, guys. You guys will love this. This is what happens behind the scenes. So FOMO and I walk into the night before, and we see that Hisense is there and TCL right next to each other, right? We didn't realize how next to each other. As we walk in, Hisense's UX 8K, 10,000 nit, and 4K are facing the back end of TCL. So TCL's waterfall thing is in the front. Hisense's best is facing the backside of TCL, which is where the NFL players were. So you
Oh
had a
my gosh.
retired NFL player bumping techno for 5 days and yelling, "Come on, come on, come on." So you had Bruce from TCL, who's a big guy, and then you had another Bruce from the other one yelling to turn the music down, right? Like they were old neighbors that they know each other. So while I'm talking to the one Bruce from Hisense, Bruce from TCL tells me, "Don't listen to that guy." But it was so funny because it's that competitiveness FOMO where they actually say
Very
like they're friends, but like Sony and Samsung.
frenemies. Yeah.
Sony asked Samsung if they could peel back their I guess was the local dimming. You can actually open it as a container, and Samsung politely said no thanks, so they cut it in half. So it's all this gamesmanship that is so
Yeah.
funny. But watching TCL and Hisense be like old neighbors, turn down in my yard, was so cool.
I had a really hard. I mean, if you guys watch my Hisense, all that noise came from TCL.
All from
So
TCL.
all that. It's just there's so much noise reduction going on in my audio because they were just blasting straight into the 110UX. So their Hisense's most popular TV right in front was the former NFL player doing their thing with giant speakers facing the 110UX, and it was nuts. Now, speaking of third party, or rather the Chinese brands, now I know Roku isn't a Chinese brand, but their TVs designed, developed in China, and I think TCL is the one that's doing it for them. You guys think the Roku Pro will be a real competitor when it's released? So the answer is obviously no, because TCL will never design a TV better than their own TV. So the Roku Pro is a budget TV. Although it's still going to be their best Roku you're going to get, it will be priced accordingly relative to the QM8. I would say the Roku Pro will be closer to the QM7, which is now a mini LED. By the way, I loved the Q7 last year, so they added mini LED this year, made it better. But I think the Roku Pro will be like a QM7 and priced similarly, but the QM8 will be a flagship that I don't believe the Roku Pro, if it's priced less than the QM8, it cannot beat the QM8 because TCL is making it for them, right? That I believe they're the subcontractor for Roku. So that's one of the issues.
Where does TCL get off being like, yo, let's do 115? Let's do 115.
I was surprised.
I mean,
I thought 110
you
was
want
the
to do
thing.
110 now? We're going to do a 112.
And that's 5 feet high. I think the 115 is 5 feet high, so it can still go through doors, right? Doorways are like 6 feet or whatever.
So
yeah.
Fumo's filming, and
6.5.
he goes, when I'm next to these TVs, they look massive. And then I stand next to him, and he's like, I'm not so big.
Oh, you were showing off the 100-inch U8K in my Hisense video. You're doing your little smooth walk.
I was like trying to get low.
Just didn't look that big.
What a
all right.
You guys having fun? Thank you guys for being here tonight. We're both exhausted, but we're here for you. So, it's all good, man.
Wasn't the 98-inch QM8 brighter than the Hisense U8K? So if you're doing peak specular highlights and so forth, it probably is, but in real content, they all look the same. I mean, when you're like, 2,000 versus 2,500 nits, it's when you're like 5,000 nits, 10,000 nits, that's when they start separating. But if it's within 500 nits, it'll be really hard to see the brightness difference, really.
Especially 8K, you don't know if it's going to be, I loved how they were so bullish, FOMO. How they literally were just like, look here. Because I know we went into the VIP section. I saw TVs there, which I filmed, not knowing they also had them out front. And I would say TCL, really good job with their gaming, where Hisense had a really cool racing simulator and a U8K. TCL had booths and booths of monitors. They both had micro LED of some type, which is cool, but those are all, Hisense did have another frame, FOMO. That was pretty cool. You enjoyed that.
Canvas TV. And it will be releasing in the USA. So many people ask, will it release in the USA? The answer is yes. I spoke to Scarlett. She goes, no, we are going to release this. They're hoping to have it by summer. But, speaking of TCL and Hisense, let's talk about, of the two, which TVs impress you most from each brand? Like TCL, what was the most impressive TV you saw that excites you? And Hisense, what TV excites you for 2024?
So I liked the UX because I loved UX last year. But I couldn't take my eyes off the QM8 and the Q7.
115? Oh no, the 100-inch or 98-inch.
Any of
QM8?
them. Just the newer QM8.
Yeah.
And when he mentioned to me that, and this is how I think this is what I was hoping you'd see from the C4. Make the C4 last year's G3, right? So it looks like, and FOMO liked the Q7 last year better than the U7K. This Q7, what's called the Q7 M8, isn't it called? What's it called now? It's called the
QM7.
QM7, right? So the QM7 is basically last year's QM8 in many ways. That's very impressive. So that only lets me think the QM8 is going to be an absolute monster. So I would say they were more impressive to me, FOMO. Where maybe it was because when I got back to see the U6, U7, and the U8, they were just only 65 inches. They might have been 55. No, they were 65. So I think it
Mhm.
was really less about which TVs were more impactful, but it was more about the presentation. The U7Ks were, or I'm sorry, the UXs were all facing the NFL players. So FOMO, all bright room, where the QM8, everything was dark. So everything really popped. So I'd say impressive from a presentation. I would give it to TCL. As far as individual TVs, I couldn't really see them in proper, but I would probably give TCL the edge.
And this question is a good segue to this question. I'd like to know full screen brightness of that 10,000 TCL TV. To give more details about it. So let me see.
They won't give us details about anything.
I
Sorry,
don't know if the
cuz.
115-inch is capable of 10,000, right? Was it 115-inch
No, they did. They never
TCL?
claimed that. It was the only person claiming 10,000 nits and 40,000 zones was the UX, and the
The
UX
UX,
never
right?
said what window it was in. And guys, I'm telling you, when they don't give you specifics, yeah, they don't give you specifics. It is
5,000
nothing.
nits. So 115 inch is 5,000 nits, 20,000 dimming zones. And the 110-inch is 40,000 dimming zones, 10,000 nits. And the 98-inch UX is 5,000 nits, 10,000 dimming zones. And here's the most important part. The 110-inch UX is 4K, and the 115-inch TCL is also 4K. And this is
Yeah.
something that I made an emphasis for both Hisense and TCL, which is if you want it to sell in America, drop the price by making it 4K, but giving it size. Because although many people argue, oh, I need 8K at 115, they're not going to buy if it's $5,000 more. But if you could save 5,000, that 8K doesn't move the needle, but the brightness does. By making it 4K, you get that brightness pop, you get better control of the dimming zones, and it looks, the contrast is there, right? You don't have the issues with the pixel density. So they definitely made the right move by making both of these TVs 4K. So I'm really excited to see these. Now, whether we can ever get a side by side, it's a whole other issue. But I
Yeah.
think you're going for size, and it will. Now, the 115-inch will not be cheap. It'll be just under 20,000, whatever that means. I'm curious to see how much the 110-inch costs, because if the 110-inch cost can be closer to 10 grand, a lot of people's going to go with the
Yeah.
110. Now, I don't know how much it is. We haven't been given pricing, but I'm just throwing it out there, Hisense. If you can make it closer, like let's say just under the 10,000 mark for your TVs at that size, it'll be sold out, no
And
doubt.
while we have Plasma TV for gaming on there, he's got his own channel. Check him out. Really good guy. Puts in a lot of work. But for him specifically, if any of these companies can keep their processing moving while gaming, they will be the ones to win. So nothing's going to touch LG and Samsung. I don't care how many gaming demos they put up. Even the 8K processing is going to be disabled while gaming. So you're going to end up with, you know, mini LEDs that are very washed out. All the TCL mini LEDs gaming did not look good. So I wish they
Yeah.
would really just give me a cinema game mode and put all the processing, let XR Clear do its thing, let TCL, because until they do that, it's going to be washed out game modes across the board.
And Dan Becker has a great question for those OLED owners curious about the new Sony Mini LED that may come out in 2024. Do you think a C2 owner could still be impressed by the X95L? Looking for a larger
X95.
TV. Oh, so X95L, that's last year's TV, so even better.
Yeah.
It's available now. New house and been debating C3 versus. So you're going with the X95L for size, Dan. In a mixed use room where mostly the room is normally bright, the X95L will be very impressive because it's just large, right? It's 85 inches.
It's very big
And
too.
in that room, it's going to fight the glare, fight the brightness. I would love it. Now, I'm an OLED guy, but I'm also realistic. At 85 inches, in a room where I want that impact watching sports and whatnot, I would definitely consider the 85-inch X95L. We saw it last year at the shootout, and that X95L made a good impression on me. What would
Yeah.
you think, Brian? You're an OLED guy. Would you consider the X95L in your
I
living
didn't
room?
get it. I didn't get it. I'm in a bright room. So, and I love the
And you,
X95L. I would not. I mean, it depends. If you're a
so
C2
you have the
owner,
83 inch, you have an 83 inch A80L.
A80L. So, I mean, so I didn't get it. I had the opportunity to get it. I'm glad I didn't because I'm looking for the X95M when that bad boy comes out. But
That's the
um,
new mini LED
the
prototype.
new mini LED. But I would say, Dan, if your C2 is 65 inches, hell yeah. I mean, jump up to the 85-inch X95L. You won't notice the difference. But if you have a large 83-inch C2, I would never go up to an X95. It would have to be substantially larger,
Yeah.
like much larger. What's up, Paulie? My boy Paulie's in the chat.
You're amazing, Lisa. Just wanted to let you know. Hey, thanks, Brahmer Hammer, for that super chat. If I get a 100-inch TV, does that mean I can never move? That's what Brian's been saying.
So check it out. When I have a 2-year lease on this, and Paul if you put tier, it's a super chat. Put my boy tier Paul in there.
What's the timestamp?
It's 7:09. Thanks for the super chat, Brammer. So my buddy Paulie, he was in a couple of my videos. He's one of my best friends. He is the one that helps me move these TVs around. It'll say TIR Paul. What's up, Paulie? So he's the one that helps me move these TVs around. You guys have no idea how hard it is to move an 83-inch without damaging it, let alone a 65. So when you get into 100-inch TVs, yeah, I mean, you're not giving that one to Aunt Bertha. I mean, you're really going to be stuck with it. I would never buy 100-inch TVs for that simple
It comes
reason.
with a house. You leave it behind with a house.
Yeah, you leave it behind. And tell you, the person that buys the house isn't going to want your big because guys may not know this. People don't like big TVs in their homes. That's why these laser TVs are doing well. They want them to disappear.
Yeah,
they do not want big, as much as you and I want it. Nobody wants a big piece of plastic in their living room. So,
but there's someone who will help you move the heaviest TVs on earth. You know why? Because Leo.
What's up, handsome?
He will help you move.
Only my guys like me. That's my analytics. Well, that's all right, baby. That's okay. Let it rain. Let it rain, Leo.
On the 100-inch, those new 100-inch TVs are the stuff of nightmare fuel. If you worry about being crushed by TV, when you're crushed by TV, I kind of help but think of our friend Scott Crookley.
Guillotine.
The guillotine TV.
He's like laying in bed, like with the pink curtains.
Lisa, thank you for the super chat. When will an 83-inch QD OLED become available? My prediction, 2026. That's when I see it coming. But that's a prediction. No guarantees. Don't hold me to it. What about you, Brian?
And if it's matte, who's going to want it? Oh, imagine it was an 83-inch matte. That would suck. Oh,
Sony would not make it matte, but Samsung will. And let me talk about that matte. I think matte is good for those who want that filmic movie theater look, because in the movie theater, it looks matte, right? That screen from wherever, 10, 20 feet away is matte-like. So if you bring a matte OLED into your living room, it feels like in the movie theater. If you watch Gemini Man, it won't be hyper-sharpened as much, right? Maybe that's a good thing.
Oh, man. All right, first of all, let me tell you this. This is where FOMO just jumped the shark, all right? So him and what's the name of the guy? I always forget his name. He was lovely. The guy that did the demo for us for the reflection handling.
Florian.
That's a badass name. I wish my name was like Brian. So boring. Anyway, so as Florian is talking about 1,000 nits, he then, if I know FOMO is going to bring this to my video, he brings out these medical pieces written on reflection.
Right. The white paper on how glare is bad for you.
How glare is bad for your eyes.
Right.
I'm like, that's your argument.
It gives you stress, right?
Exactly. I'm worried about I'm worried now. It's like lens crafters. You're worried about my eyes.
Well, it's eye stress, eye strain, because your eyes are constantly focusing and defocusing from the glare.
That's like me buying a new car, and they're like, "Look, I was going to give you the full horsepower, but I don't want you driving too fast, baby. There's accidents all over the place."
So this is Brian. Imagine a cigarette commercial. He's smoking. Oh, all that research is, forget it. It's all bunt. Keep us smoking, man. Keep us smoking. Like, no, the research shows that maybe tobacco is bad for you. The hell with you.
But could you imagine? I tell the guy the contrast ratio was lost, and he breaks out some medical things about my vision. I was like,
when Brian said, but the glare is okay. I can live with it. Let me show you the white paper, right? Puts on the white paper.
I don't mind seeing my own face. He goes, yeah, but Here you can see the whole washed out image. I'm like, I don't want it washed out. That's why I have an OLED. Oh man, I can't
But
wait.
you know
Just wait
what?
till you see our tech therapy video, man. That's gonna be off the hook.
Well, you know what? The tech therapy is the G4 because you bought the 83-inch A80L and you're like, guys, there is no MLA. Otherwise, I would buy it. But you know what? 83-inch A80L, best ever. I'm buying it. It comes in November.
So I'm gonna lay out the story. This is how it's gonna play out. Let's just recap. Last year, S95C clearly the one to get, or the G3. Then there was the hiccups with the One Connect box, and right over here was my next girl, the S90. Now, no one wanted the S95 because the S90 was there, right? FOMO, it was cheaper. No One Connect box. Think about this next year. Next year, no one's going to buy the S95D. You're going to look at the S90D. If it's crippled to separate them, now you have nowhere to go. And you're going to look back over at the G4. Now, think about that for a second. So it's going to be all year long. If you buy an S95D, people in the chat are going to dunk on you from the foul line for being matte finish. It's going to be, I think it's going to be hysterical, but that's going to be the storyline. And the G4 is going to be like, yeah. The problem is the G4 is one of one.
Mhm.
So it's still on an island, but I think it's great, man. It's all good.
But will it be the best 83-inch of the year? Yeah,
Well, what's going
I
to
think
stop
we
it?
agree.
What's
I think
going
we're
to
all
stop
going to
it?
agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
the A80L, as good as it is, was going against the C4, right? It wasn't going against, and even going against the G3, it was basically a G2 without XR clear. Now, the A80L still spanks the C4 because it has the old processor, but the A80L is not doing 3,000 nits.
Nope, not even close.
So, ball game.
And the new processor,
new
the
processor.
G4, designed to match XR clear point by point. Speaking of points,
And you have a new
Packers
stand.
48, Cowboys 16. Wow. And the Cowboys were
Jordan
dominating.
Love, bro.
Jordan Love. But weren't the Cowboys dominating in the first, 5, 6, 7, 8 games of the season?
Yeah, but
And now look at them, man. That's great.
And the
Hey,
Packers,
Packer fans, I know Brandon is celebrating. I think he's a
I
Packers
thought Jordan
fan
Love
from
was
Wisconsin.
terrible. I don't know, man.
Well, he was untested, and then he just, boom, came out of nowhere. Kind of like Steve Young after Montana left. Who's this guy, Steve Young? Whoa, he's good.
Oh, he didn't leave. They kicked him out. Love me some Montana.
No, or that. He went to, Kansas City for a little bit? Okay, so this year people are moving into the G4 83-inch. I'm on the hook for an 83-inch G4, and many people are. Now, again, pricing, we don't know, but buy a stand. Oh, yeah, and stands on the G4 only come with the box in the USA, 5565, 7783. You're going to have to option that out yourself because it's likely to be wall mounted. But I do think the G4 83-inch looks like the TV to get because of that better processor, better manufacturing on this next generation, and better MLA, like just more refined, right?
And what's cool for the G4 FOMO is then now it becomes an option against 85-inch TVs. It starts to invade that space because it's going to be brighter than a lot of them. So in theory, the G4 is brighter than the X95L.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory. I have a feeling that it's not going to be fully that bright.
And see, that's the thing is LG Display is saying 3,000 nits, but as we all know, LG Electronics may be holding back and then giving it the full Monty next year because what's left in 2025? If they give you everything now, what are they going to do in 2025? So if they give you 2,500 nits this year, add another 500 next year, just like Samsung, right? They're playing that. You got to pace yourself, right? Don't throw everything out in the same year.
Drug dealers. Pass it out to your friends.
I was telling Brian this. Now, when FOMO is a star in Korea, when can I buy his custom bottled tequila? Would you guys buy FOMO tequila? That's, I don't know, man. Korean, with all the Korean words around. That'd be kind of cool. The white gloves.
The best moment, and I'll share this. I don't know if FOMO shared this, but it was a good moment for me to watch too, is Scarlett was the young lady from Hisense.
Yes, she was our product marketing manager for Hisense.
Yeah.
From China.
And I want to share this moment because it was cool to watch because I watched it. Obviously there's a language barrier in some areas. She spoke very good English, and she was the one that walked us around and explained all the products. And FOMO had her mic'd, and he was talking to her. This young lady held her composure the entire time, and we thought we were actually boring her at a certain point. So once we finished, I'd taken the mic off of her, and she remember I said to her, I said, well, you're tired of us now. And she
Yeah. Do
looked
you
at
watch it?
FOMO.
You watch our channel, right?
Yeah, she looked at FOMO and she goes, this was an absolute honor for me. I am a huge fan of him. So I thought
Oh,
that
I
was
was
so
so yeah.
cool that we went like almost an hour with her. She did not let on at all that she was a fan until the very end. Now take the SK interview where this young, brilliant head of that division, who's famous
Yeah.
over there,
So
was
so
nervous to
the
work with FOMO
lead,
because he's famous. And I'm just
the
sitting there, the
team
Italian
leader.
Irish thug.
It was like the team leader with his entire crew, high bandwidth memory crew. These guys are in charge of making the fastest memory in the world. And they're all very young, right? 30s and 40s. And it's like 9 of them taking a group picture. And then I said, hey, you guys want to be in there?
Oh
And
my
oh my
God.
gosh, it's like, oh, come, come, come,
Dude,
come. It's
he's
like,
David
oh,
Hasselhoff
yeah,
in
you're
Germany.
famous in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you don't realize the deep effect you have on people. Yeah, Scarlett is a big FOMO
I
fan.
don't
She's
have
all
that
like,
effect
I
at
am
all.
such a fan. And immediately the selfies came out and I was like, it's very cool. It's so cool to talk to people who are in the business, but they enjoy the content, not because they work for Hisense. They just enjoy our content. So, Brian's going to get his cult
His
following.
content.
I can see Brian do that. Okay, Brian, this is a good question.
These
At what
dyslexic
size will you
people always
stop at?
misspell my name. My
Now,
teachers
I want to
misspell
set
my
this
name.
up. Rock out. I don't think
Brain.
Rockout has I know brain. Rockout has a great question because TCL has a very unique display. And I wish you guys were all there.
Yeah.
And I'll show it in my video. But what they did is they have this sofa. And the sofa has a mechanism that brings the sofa closer and farther away from a 98-inch TV. And so at its closest point, it's 7.5 feet. And it goes all the way back to 10 feet. So you can see what the recommended distance is for a 98-inch is 10 feet. But then what does it look like at 7.5 feet? And then the 98-inch TV could also shrink from 98 to 85 to 75. So you can play with the distances, right? And we sat up close, 7.5 feet at 98-inch. I'm like, this is the new distance. I cannot get away from 7.5 feet at 98. I felt,
we filmed
first of all, it didn't take up my entire vision. It was right here, just like in a movie theater. 7.5 feet, 98-inch, totally doable. So, rock out. To answer your question, how far is Brian sitting away from the TV? Because at 10 feet away, you really do need 115-inch. I mean, I am convinced of that now.
So
Because
so
a
I
7.5.
was
Go ahead, Brian.
so rock out to give you perspective. The 880L behind me is 83 inches. And we're probably 15 feet from it. So it looks actually like it's 55 inches. Just think about that. Just on camera, that's what you're seeing. So my seating position is probably 11 feet. So I am too far from it. Gaming, I'm more like 8 feet away. Now my C1 at 83 inches, I'm probably 9 feet movies, 6 feet gaming. So I'm probably in the good spot for my C1 at 83 inches. But for this room, the 83 inch is probably too small. My challenge rock out is I know for every large TV that we saw, screen uniformity is going to be a problem. And I don't keep my TVs long enough to invest not money, but how's Paul going to help me move a 100-inch TV? So I'm okay. My max size FOMO would be the Z series at 88
Okay.
for my personal size.
Personal. And for me, I am limited by my ability to hire friends, family, and Geek Squad
I'm not
to
even
carry
local.
this TV. Right. This is where ultra short throw. I know now that my 10 feet distance should be 120 to 115. And ultra short throw is probably my solution. I don't think I can get a TV that big, have it on the wall. It would have to be in a dedicated theater room that handles that size TV well. But yeah. And great question. Thank you for the super chat, Alonzo. So from what you guys seen from CES, which TV is the best to get? I mostly game, watch YouTube. I'm willing to pay whatever. What size? 83-inch G4. I was just waiting for this post. So the fact that you game, stop there. LG is a good gaming TV. Now I know not last year the S90C beat the G3 as far as an all-around gaming TV. LG was very clear. They addressed a lot of the complaints last year. Now, we'll see what that really means. But taking them on their word, if the G4 has improved some of the complaints over last year's G3, even half of the complaints, right, relating to brightness or some of the picture profiles on gaming, G4 would be a great gaming TV because it's an LG and you watch anything else, YouTube, HDR, that brightness, the image processing, you're going to have such a good time. And 83-inch allows you to sit as close as 8 feet and feel comfortable, or 10 feet. I mean, it's so flexible because a lot of people get 83-inch and they're thinking, oh man, that's just too big. If you're sitting 7 or 8 feet away, 83 inches, absolutely fine. And you can always lower the brightness, by the way. But Brian, yet for a gamer who also watches streaming like YouTube.
I love Cryptotologist that he goes, not the best idea if you're renting to get a 100-inch TV. My prediction this year, Alonzo, is going to be the G4 is going to be the best gaming TV. They're going to be at 144 hertz, so that cancels out Samsung's advantage last year. Their advantage last year was SDR not being bright enough, I think, on the C series and the G series. I think they're going to rectify that. And the fact that they have HCIG, Samsung does not. Samsung is going to be matte.
Well, Samsung doesn't label it HGIG, but
static,
technically static. I mean, you have to have the right setting. It comes close, but yeah.
And I didn't see
if it matters.
Yeah, and Alonzo, what I like about Samsung's is they do have a lot of different presets. But I would go back with, I thought they were tied a few years ago. I thought that G series took a step back last year because its offerings were less. But I think that the G4, if it's brighter than them, it's going to be the better TV.
Yeah. And this is a great comment. Buddy Love wants me, FOMO, should ask Samsung for a factory tour. So I'm waiting now that I know I'm getting popular in Korea just because I'm popular in Korea. Nothing else.
You gotta put out an album.
My TV, right? The minute I get big enough for me to appear at Samsung, that's when they're going to ask me. They're like, you know what? BTS is right next door. We'll have FOMO as the backup act, right? You know, I'll warm people up with a stand-up routine in English, and then BTS will come in. But yeah, at some point it will happen. I don't know when, but I did talk to the rep at Sony, and he wants me to come to Tokyo for something similar. So, you know, maybe I'll do an Asia tour. So we'll see. But yes, one day.
So we had some pretty funny awkward moments with like Samsung's integration was saying. It said like, hey, when you have the Samsung smart system is so good that whatever's playing on your phone as you walk into the house, it can go right on the TV. The TV won't even ask you. It'll just turn on. And some guy
whatever you're watching last, right?
So some guy behind me goes, so if I'm in incognito mode, is that going to be a problem?
No. That was us. That was Tech Steve and I.
Yeah,
so we were behind you, right?
We go right back over to the next booth. I think it was the next booth where the guy goes, hey, look, it's all men. We're all guys there. And the guy doing the thing was older. He's like, and if you want to check out your favorite K-pop star, and we're all sitting there, and there's like a 12-year-old girl dancing.
18-year-old, 17, 16-year-old girls.
He's like, for your favorite K-pop. And I'm like, my man, so you were just
this is kind of creepy.
That's kind of creepy. But everybody had
obviously obviously targeted to a younger audience, except when they were saying
all older guys were like, all right, man, can you put up something else?
When they said the new feature is whatever you were watching last, the minute you step to the TV, it will turn on and continue paying what you watch.
Pornhub, like, oh, hey, family, whole family's here.
This is gonna be a problem.
You imagine Thanksgiving, you run out and Thanksgiving, you run out to grab some beers. Come back, hey guys.
You walk by the TV.
What are you looking at?
Well, because it tracks your phone. When you walk by the TV, it switches to what you were watching last because it identifies you by your phone. Oh, that was not well thought through. I can see very awkward moments.
Your kids, your parents. Hey, Dad, what's going on over here?
Or no, Brian, your teenage boy. What would happen then?
Oh my God!
Forget
you
us.
imagine?
Teenage son walks by. Not a good look.
Yeah, he's like, "When I was
Questions
great."
Will be asked. Have you seen the Hisense short throw? I saw their tiny little short throw, the smallest laser 4K TV, and it was small. I think this is going to be a hit because it was so portable. So it's the size of an Air MacBook Air, and if you watch my Hisense video, you'll see it in the kind of like one of the early cut scenes. It's tiny, right? And I really like it because this is one that's pretty portable, that for those of you trying to check out, I'm ready to commit to an expensive ultra short throw, an expensive projector, or even expensive 110-inch TV, but I want to get a feel for how big it'll fit in my room. This is a great transition. Now, Hisense has the brightest ultra short throw, which I'm very excited about. So they worked with Barco to get this 2000 nit, not lumens, 2000 nit specular highlight with Barco on their ultra short throw laser. This is what they're working on, and they're showing the prototype. That's where they're at right now. The blacks are obviously not OLED black, but very close to edge lit LCD, and the peak specular highlights. I was like, wow. And this was in the ambient brighter room, right? It wasn't dark. It was in the back side of the 110UX. And so I was like, this is very impressive. And I think if Hisense brings this out, the fact that they worked with Barco on it, it's not going to be cheap, right? I mean, Barco is the premium brand for top end projectors, but Barco is taking ultra short throw seriously, and they want to distribute their technology on the ultra short throw end through Hisense. This could be a winner. This could be your premium alternative to the JVC long throw, which we all know, 8K JVC, NZ8, amazing. This is that alternative. Now, whether it's over 10,000, how much remains to be seen. Oh, dude, I just realized we're at over 2 hours. I'm going to have to run soon. Oh my
Well,
gosh.
the 8K
You guys are out of
projector,
control.
I like the 8K
Uh-huh.
Hisense. I thought that was pretty cool technology, FOMO, where it had the actual screen as the sound. That was pretty cool. That whole thing is pretty elaborate.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
was.
coming here though, of course. But
And speaking of not coming here, DM has a great comment. Why did Panasonic bother with CES when they won't sell to the USA?
global
Short
show.
answer, it's a global,
It's a
global event. Like I said, all these people from China, Korea, a lot of retailers from other countries come here to decide whether they'll sell this TV in Germany. So Panasonic is here to show off to the German retailers, right? You got the Best Buy of Europe here looking at Panasonic TVs.
Yeah.
Now, also, short throw screens are hell expensive. And not next year. I think they're dropping in price. Will 8K just go away? No,
No,
because
they doubled
Samsung
down.
wants to hold on to 8K, and Samsung will single-handedly move that agenda. TCL Hisense has walked away from it. Sony appears to have. We don't know until they announce the new 2024 lineup. And LG, it's done, right? They're not exploring it further in 2024 at least.
No,
Thanks for
sir.
that super chat, my friend. Jackal, thank you for your generosity and super chat. With so many varieties of OLED gaming monitors coming out this year, do you guys think TV still do as well as previous years?
Yes.
Yes, most definitely. These gaming monitors, remember, as far as I know, they still lack Dolby Vision, HGIG
HGIG.
gaming, right? Dolby Vision gaming, HGIG gaming, HDR10 plus gaming. Unless they include those formats, they're kind of incomplete, and
Yeah.
their image processing doesn't allow them to be a television.
No.
They lack that XR clear, right? So
Yeah.
if you're feeding it low bit rate content, you have to make sure your PC or whatever has
Yeah.
to do the processing, which won't work so well. They don't have the image processor on the PC side unless there's a software for it. So I don't think
Yeah, and also
incomplete.
you'll be the duality of being able to use your TV for a TV feature. The monitors,
Mhm.
as cool and sleek as they are, FOMO, they always tend to lose something in terms of its,
Yeah,
as
they
we
do.
mentioned, QD OLED monitors. If they had the same specs as an S95C, you get them in a second. Then it turns out they're QD OLED, but they're 400 nits. So I think you're great. C1 48 inches, awesome monitor. Enjoy it. Don't worry about it.
But this goes to a different question. Will OLED continue to sell as well? So I know someone asked a question earlier, and I wanted to get back to it. OLED TVs have been in decline, specifically the OLED technology, and we don't
Massively.
know
Yeah.
why. Well, we have our suspicions. It's because larger mini LEDs cost the same. People are going larger, but they can't go larger with OLED because above 65 inch is prohibitively expensive. At 65 inch, let's say the C3 A80L, you're at just under 2,000, right? Somewhere between 1,600 and 1,900. Well, at that price point, you have an 85-inch U8K QM8. That's 85 inches. That's 20 inches more. And you're still ready to spend that $1,700. You're going to go larger because at Best Buy, that's going to look impressive. The
Yeah.
size and the impact and the HDRs. So I think that's where they're going, or consumers are going. And this year, I don't think it's going to get better. And that's why Samsung has to do something different. The focus on image quality with semi-gloss gloss did not move sales last year, hoping that they could ride the frame's popularity with the matte screen. So we'll see.
Well, Classy mentioned
Eh,
also that they're doing a QNED 99. So yeah, they do have one 8K.
okay, so there you go.
Many of
But
them.
now again, that the QNED 99 is out, but it's not the same. They're not using the upgraded processors
It's
on the
not a whole
G4.
platform.
Like,
Yeah, it's not a
why
whole
are you
platform.
using
Yeah.
that 10th Alpha 11, right? What? or Alpha
Absolutely.
10, whatever the alpha, the top
It's
alpha.
not gonna be
Why are
able to
you using
compete. It's
that?
not well. So the funny thing is, if you mention that, that 99 cannot go near the Samsung with that processing. So
Yeah.
it's dead in the water as far as I'm concerned.
And Rock Out, thank you for the super chat. And this will be the last super chat question. We'll try to wrap it up. Is there a big difference between the 83-inch AEL over 77? For me, the biggest difference is the size. With additional size, there's a perceptual brightness. It feels brighter, but technically the image quality is the same. Now, uniformity, 83 inches tend to have worse uniformity than 77, especially in this last generation W OLED. So a lot of people complain the 83-inch not as clean as the 77, but image quality processing should be identical.
Yeah,
All
mine's
right.
mine's clean as a whistle, but this year the A80L has the A90J chassis, has the A90J sound system, and has the heatsink. Does that make any difference other than brightness? Probably not, but it is a difference this year. Don't expect
Yeah,
it next year
true, true. And thank you for that super chat, Ryan.
though.
Debating a move to 77-inch from 65-inch B10. Oh, that could be a good move. Set up 7.5 feet away. Perfect. 35-degree angle, but could shift to 8.5 with 77-inch. Mix of gaming, movies, TV, 77-inch now or a new
So you can't go
65-inch?
down, bro.
77-inch now. The new 65. Okay, so G4 slightly brighter, 77-inch G3 capture the savings because going from a B10 to a G3 is a good upgrade in brightness and size. Enjoy that, and then the next time you upgrade, you'll be at maybe an 83-inch QD OLED. So I think you're set up pretty well. You're getting all the benefits of the discounted G3. And the 77-inch size is the cleanest of all the sizes last year anyway. So you'll likely get a clean panel on a 77-inch G3. And yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think you're going to really enjoy that 77-inch G3. And it
Definitely.
is a definite step up in brightness over your B10, no doubt.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, my friend, what are you doing this week? Share.
I have a ton of content to put out. So please go back and check out my Panasonic video. I have TCL, I have Samsung AK. We have our combined. I have probably 6 videos to do this week, so I'm busy all week. I know you are too. So our CES coverage has just really started. So
Yep.
so
Some of these
it's all
comments, you
good.
guys crack me up.
But thank you guys for jumping in tonight. Hey, what's up,
Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So yeah, thank you for everything. You know, this year is a great kickoff for us. And you'll see us together much more. And
Yep.
check out my channel, Brian's Tech Therapy. FOMO, thank you for everything
Yes.
you did this year at CES.
And
We had a great
thank you
time.
all for and thank you all for attending our live streams that we had at CES.
They'll
We're
be
going
better
to
next
continue to
year.
try to get. Oh,
Yep, they'll be better.
it is next year. This year,
No, I meant
we're going
next
to
year
try
at
to do
CES,
weekly.
we'll have more. We'll have
Oh,
one. We'll make
yes.
sure that the connection is better.
We're going to have fun, and we'll do better with the connection. Yeah, that was just terrible first day. But this year, we have so much in store for you. Just a quick summary. Our next big event is Value Electronics Early Comparison
In the
G4
spring.
900D, S95D compared to last year's A95L, G3. What's better? Is this image quality, image
Yep.
processing upgrade real, fake, whatnot? We're going to look at all of
Yeah.
that. And then M-Wave coming in June, hopefully getting large 98-inch, 110-inch TVs to compare, and then finishing off the year at the shootout in September, October. And
So
of
we
course,
actually,
Sony's launch will be
yeah.
great.
So we have these separate events. We have several separate events where you'll see us together, and then we have our own content, our own reviews. We're booked already. It didn't even start yet. So
Yep, yep. Again, thank you, everyone. And
love you
until next
guys.
time, stop the FOMO.
Take care.